injury. The numbers for this Commanders defense when Daron Payne is in the lineup and when Daron Payne is not in the lineup is quite staggering. This is via Bill Barnwell of ESPN. On 1st and 10 runs this year with Daron Payne on the field, Washington had a success rate of 64.4 on defense, which is about league average. Over 97 1st and 10 carries without Daron Payne, that number drops drastically to 51.6, which was dead last in the National Football League. So anyone trying to underscore Daron Payne missing this football game here this afternoon, you're sadly mistaken.
Johnny, that means what you just said is that Johnny Newton needs to play.
Yes.
Fantastic. I mean, if you look at the first 2 playoff games, there's one guy in particular that's played the game of his life every single time. It's De'Ami Brown.
Yeah.
I need Johnny Newton to channel his inner De'Ami Brown. He needs the game of his life because Saquon Barkley is the factor. He's the X factor, the it factor, the key factor. If you can neutralize Saquon Barkley, you put it all on the shoulders of Jalen Hurts. I'll take those odds.
Yeah.
I'll take those odds. Jalen Hurts and this Philadelphia offense are not as good when he is forced to actually throw the football. So if you can take out Saquon, this game is a completely wide open fiasco. And like the defense does have the benefit of having done that.
Yes.
But they did it without John Allen. You know, John Allen's return to this lineup has been one of the saving graces, I think, defensively. He doesn't show up a ton on the box score necessarily, but in some of the nuanced things that he does while playing the defensive interior, but also on some instances kicking out to D-end so they can set the edge to make sure a guy like Saquon isn't hitting those home runs, because hot damn, is he good at hitting the home runs. So I'm like, obviously I'm sad that Daron Payne's not going to be there, but we have not seen Washington go up against Philly with John Allen in the lineup. He missed both of those games with that torn pec issue.
Yeah, I think his return to the lineup is going to be huge. He's gotten better each and every week that he's played since returning from that pec injury, with last week being kind of the culmination of everything, man. 6 quarterback pressures, like 4 or 5 hits. He was really impactful in that football game. The thing that he is going to have to do today, though, it's not going to be about his pass rushing expertise. It's not going to be about his ability to necessarily get to Jalen Hurts. It's about keeping Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner clean on the second level. Can you eat double teams? Can you stop the big ticket Mekhi Becton from climbing up to the linebackers? I think that is going to be the big-time deal with these defensive tackles here today. I am a Johnny Newton guy. I think he's got some pass rush juice. He's built like a damn fire hydrant, but stopping the run is really not his forte at this point in his career. The body is not physically mature enough to take on double teams, snap in, snap out. They elevated Carl Davis once again from the practice squad.
Yes.
He's no Daron Payne in terms of rushing the passer or stopping the run, but he's somebody that'll be physical and a space eater on the interior and help eat up those double teams.
At the very least, he knows what Philadelphia feels like.
Yes.
Pause. But he played in that last game against Philadelphia.
Played well.
I thought he played well, right?
Yeah.
Like I went down the rabbit hole yesterday, as I'm sure most people did, and I'm watching Carl Davis highlights. I was like, I never in my life did I think this is what we'd be doing, but here we are because of the Daron injury, which, by the way, like Daron is listed as out with a finger and a knee. My belief is it's more the knee.
Well, yes.
You know, the finger he played last week, you just put a club on that thing, now you got a weapon. The knee situation is really what's keeping him out here. That's a way different.
Can I be real about this, though? I'm glad that he is not playing, because if you are not 100%, if you don't have the ability to anchor going up against this offensive line, you then become a liability to this defense, and I think it takes a lot from Daron to be mature enough to say, hey, guys, I gave it my all this week. I was getting treatment around the clock, but I'm just not ready to go. The old next man up mentality is something that we hear a lot in professional sports. It's got to be on full display tonight.
Yeah, I'd much rather him, if he's not going to be, not even 100%, even just 80%,
exactly.
50%. Like, if he's going to be a liability, you don't need him. You don't need him out there. There is one thing that I also saw as it relates to the defense.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lattimore's staying on his side.
Yeah.
He's not going to be traveling with A.J. Brown. Obviously, the last time these two teams played, he did a healthy dose of traveling with A.J. Brown. Against Mike Evans, in that first week against Tampa, he followed Mike Evans. That did not go well. At least he followed him for the first half. Last week, I thought, was his best game as a Commander. He stayed on his side. They targeted Mikey. LOL. The Lions wish they didn't want to do that. But he's going to stay on his side. I do think that energizes him a little bit. I think that's a smart move by Joe Witt in the defense as well, just to keep him on that side.
I think it's one of the most impactful differences in this Commanders-Eagles rubber match. Marshawn Lattimore was not 100% the last time these two teams played. He didn't even finish the football game. It was a good, valiant effort going up against A.J. Brown, but I expect him to be much more competitive here this afternoon, knowing that he's ready to go, got a full week of practice, and is feeling good. He played really well against Detroit. We didn't hear his name called a lot because they weren't throwing the football at him. He was sticking in coverage. I thought he competed his ass off in the wild card round against Mike Evans. So I'm super excited to see a healthy Marshawn Lattimore and what it can do for this Washington Commanders defense.
There's a lot we're going to get into over the course of the pregame. It's a special 3-hour edition. We got loads of guests. Kevin Sheehan's going to be with us in about 20 minutes. You'll hear from Craig Hoffman, Chris Russell. The Junkies are going to be live on location with us towards the end of our show today. We finish at 2. You get Westwood 1 coverage on 106.7 The Fan starting at 2. Their full pregame. We kick off, obviously, at 3. Did you see some of the stuff that was going down in Philadelphia yesterday?
Yeah,
some rallies at the Hard Rock. You know, Grant joined me for about an hour on the Team 980 yesterday from Hard Rock. You had members of ownership there. You had former players out there. It felt like every time that London Fletcher walked by, there was a Hall of Fame chant that went on behind Grant. This is like anything that I've ever seen. I saw the video circulating of Tailgate Ted giving, I don't know if he was at the Hard Rock or wherever he was, but he was getting pumped up. He was giving a space. Barstool, but like El Presidente tweeted that video of Tailgate Ted. So he is going mega viral right now. Like, this is a different energy.
Yes, it is. And I think it goes back to what we said at the top of the show. There is an energy and an infatuation with this football team that I think if you're a younger fan, you're not very familiar with.
I am not familiar at all.
Because the winning wasn't at this height, wasn't at this level to where people were willing to come out. You can't go anywhere right now in the DMV without seeing that stupid W everywhere. and the logo's starting to grow on me, man. That's the one thing that, you know, we always have those conversations in the offseason about, will they change the name? Will they rebrand? I'll tell you what, a rebrand is far from happening if this group continues to win at the clip that they're winning at. The merch is selling like hotcakes.
It really is. I mean, Jaden Daniels is the biggest selling jersey in all of sports,
which is ridiculous.
In all, you factor NBA, soccer, everything. He is Fanatic's biggest seller right now. Washington is, I think, top 3 throughout the course of the season.
Doing the damn thing, and it just goes to show, man, what happens when you put a winning product on the field. The name doesn't matter, the color scheme doesn't matter. It's all about winning football games, and I'm glad that football is the main thing right now. Getting it off of football for just a quick second, Denton. Can we do a Honor Brewing thank you to Joe Gibbs for pushing this Washington Commanders sail to the finish line? Reading the Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham hit piece from ESPN yesterday was breathtaking.
That was beautiful.
Just knowing some of the details and the ins and outs and how difficult the coin that you phrased to describe him, my favorite, that rat-faced bastard.
That rat-faced bastard.
Seeing how he was kicking and screaming on his way out of the door like a little toddler makes all of this feel a little bit better. I can't get with the fan that says, oh, I don't care what Dan Snyder thinks. You have to. We were miserable for 25-plus years because of that dude. And now that he finally had to relinquish power, none of this would have been possible if it wasn't for our guy Joe Gibbs, man.
Yeah, it's getting out of a bad relationship and seeing the person that treats you bad also be miserable.
Yes.
That's a very nice thing to have. I'm of the belief, Leno, when it comes to that particular person. After this weekend, I don't ever really want to talk about him again.
It doesn't matter. He's irrelevant, but it was perfect timing yesterday.
It was wonderful. Seeing the headline, he effing hates it.
Yeah.
Inject that into my veins. And then, as you mentioned, like Joe Gibbs, it felt like for a while, you and I have been in this market now professionally working for a number of years. We've been doing this show for like 3 years now. It felt like for a while Joe Gibbs was around, but not really around.
Wasn't fully embraced.
He was around when Dan Snyder needed public perception to be switched, when he needed some sort of PR hit. The fact that Joe Gibbs is now back, like to the point where he's jumping on a radio in the market, and he's probably going to jump on radio again this week if the team wins. He's going to games regularly. I believe he's going to be in Philadelphia today. Like, he is traveling with the team. He is like fully back in this, and then you learn that he played that huge factor. He was already the greatest coach in franchise history, already the greatest man in franchise history. I'm willing to put this dude up for sainthood at this point. I believe the way that sainthood works, you got to witness a miracle.
Yeah.
This dude won 3 championships and got Dan Snyder to sell the team. That, to me, counts as a miracle.
I was about to say, I know Stadium Gate is something that we'll discuss hot and heavy this offseason.
Joe Gibbs Stadium, baby.
But, man, he's got to be on the naming rights. He's got to have a statue, something to commemorate his greatness. And as fun as the Dan Quinn ride has been, as fun as other coaches have been here in this market, there is no one like Joe Gibbs, and I think having him help push this thing across the finish line is almost just symbiotic, man. It's the perfect storm.
It really is. All right, in about 15 minutes, Kevin Sheehan of the Kevin Sheehan Show is going to jump on with us. But when we get back, Linnell, if I'm Joe Witt, there's one thing I'm doing on the first possession to make Jalen Hurts uncomfortable. I'll share that with you when we return. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. We're 4 hours away from kickoff. In the NFC Championship game, the Commanders get an opportunity to punch the franchise's first ticket to the Super Bowl in 33 years. Don't go anywhere. He's Linnell Willingham. I'm Denton Day. You're listening on 106.7 The Fan. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. Denton Day and Linnell Willingham. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. A little under 4 hours away from kickoff of the NFC Championship game, the Commanders get an opportunity to punch their first ticket to the Super Bowl in 33 years. I'm going to say that as much as I possibly can, Linnell, over the next 2.5 hours or so, because it still doesn't feel 100% real. Kevin Sheehan's going to join us in about 10, 15 minutes or so. A big story, Linnell, as you know, has been the health of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And I credit to the Philadelphia social team. I've seen so many pictures of this dude running this week.
It's awkward.
And it feels very, very forced, like they're trying to cover something up. But I'll tell you what, man, if I'm Joe Witt Jr. on that first possession, which I'm hoping that Philadelphia starts with the football because, we love that. We love that doubling up at the second half. I am blitzing his ass off. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna see, like, what is this knee really about? Like, these videos of him running around are cute, running at practice, running on the blacktop from the field to the facility. All of that is cute. What does it look like when you got Frankie Louvu chasing you?
Yeah, I think that would be my mentality as well. How does he move outside of structure? Can you flush him out of the pocket consistently? It's interesting you brought up the doubling up thing. I think in this football game, deviating away from the norm probably seems like psycho mentality here. But in reality, if the Washington Commanders win the toss, they've chosen to defer all year long.
Every single time.
This is the week to me that I'm taking the football and trying to score first. Philadelphia is a team that if you get up on them and you force Jalen Hurts to throw the football, they begin chasing points. I think that would be my mentality here in this one. Can they score with us?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was driving over here and I was having that same question. I was like, all right, what are they going to do when it comes to that decision? Do you deviate from the norm because you realize the first game in itself was just slow on offense? Like, right. there was never really a get right period. But that second game, slow in the first half, they really caught fire in the second half. Do you do your best to make sure that you can jump out and get some sort of momentum early and do, as you mentioned, like kind of force Philadelphia off of what they want to do? Like, they're going to run with Saquon no matter what, as long as it's not like a 14-point game in the second half.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We know how offensive coordinators get when it comes to the postseason. I don't want to, look back at last week too much, but every time David Montgomery touched the football for that team, it was a win for the Washington Commanders defense. I think it was 7 carries for 28 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 10.5 yards per pop in that first half, and they refused to continue to give him the football. Newsflash for those of you that are gamblers out there looking for some props on FanDuel, Kenneth Gainwell is not going to touch the football 7, 8 times. They're not taking the ball out of Saquon Barkley's hands like boy wonder Ben Johnson. So that's the one thing I do worry about. This Commanders defense, as opportunistic as they've been, I believe it's 28 points off of turnovers. It's the most in the National Football League this postseason. Their inability to stop teams on a down-in, down-out basis has been a problem. They're giving up the most yards per play throughout the first 2 games of the postseason. I do worry about that, but I continue to go back to my irrational confidence in the quarterback. As long as he is out there, I don't care if they give up 10 yards a play, 15 yards a play. As long as Five's got the ball at the end of regulation, I feel good about this team's chance to win.
It was hilarious looking over that box score with that Detroit game last week.
It's
just being like, how did they take the ball out of the best player's hands?
Like
Kellen Moore, there's no chance he's going to do that. He's like, I'm not the biggest Kellen Moore guy. I've been very upfront about that over the course of his career, but there's no way he's dumb enough. You don't even have to watch the film of that game. You just got to look at the box score and be like, why was the best player not touching the football?
It's crazy to think about if you're Washington, but, by hook or by crook, you made it to the NFC Championship game. I just think there's going to be more of a concerted effort, I guess, this week to try and stop the run. Because with Detroit, the difficulty about, preparing for them is that Jared Goff is a guy that threw 37 touchdowns during the regular season.
Right.
As much of a pumpkin as he turned into last week, he's still a very capable guy at the quarterback position. I think with Philadelphia, it's a much different game plan. It is all about stopping Saquon Barkley on first and second down, putting them in those obvious passing situations, and making Jalen Hurts beat you.
You don't think they're going to run a Devontae Smith pass this week?
I mean, I just couldn't. In reality, when you go back and look at it, Ben Johnson was on one. That's just what happens, though, sometimes.
That dude signed the Chicago contract before the game.
Yeah.
Like, he was ready. He was ready to go. There's no chance you could tell me he was trying to win that game late.
It's just amazing to think that in the most pressure-packed situation, a coach would get outside of himself. And I think that's kind of the difference between the great ones and the average ones. And I'm not trying to forecast what's going to happen with Ben Johnson in Chicago, but was it a good final memory in Detroit. I'll say that. He did not call a good football game.
So surely you have seen the stats the way that I've seen the stats.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is better when Jalen Hurts throws for like under $160. Which is
ridiculous,
a crazy thing because they're paying him a ton of money, but he's not that same player. The mobility with the knee is going to be a factor in that as well. Is there any bit of worry that this is when they get right? No, literally none.
I'm being facetious when I say it. Obviously, look, Jalen Hurts' job becomes much easier when you have to sell out and commit, a ton of resources to stopping the run. You're going to have to make him beat you in those man-to-man coverage situations. We know Washington, how they're going to play it. They're going to stack the box. They're going to go man up on the perimeter with Mikey Sainristil still and Marshawn Lattimore. And the question is going to be, how long can those guys hold up in coverage? That's why I think what you mentioned about blitzing is so key in this. Move him off of his spot. Don't let him just catch step throw, and you got a much better chance of doing this. I watched last week. It feels like every time the Philadelphia Eagles play football games, Jalen Hurts misses A.J. Brown deep several times per game.
Several times.
It's a big reason why their relationship kind of soured during that middle portion of the season. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to infighting in the city of brotherly love.
I guess there's no section in the book on what happens when your quarterback constantly overthrows you.
I mean, I'll just be real.
Or underthrows you.
One of my best friends is an Eagles fan, and we haven't talked to each other all week. This has been something I've taken very seriously.
Good.
Last night, I got him on the horn at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting here listening about how their $200 million running back quarterback is going to dice us up, how Saquon's going to run for 200 yards. Get me the kickoff.
I'm so done with all the social media stuff. Like, line the ball up and let's do it.
It's just terrible. Those
best
cheese
player,
whiz snorting idiots in Philadelphia.
The best player wears the jersey that you're wearing, and he wears number 5. I trust, as long as he got the ball in his hands, I think Washington has themselves a good chance, like a really, really good. Did you know that Jalen Hurts? I meant to bring this up earlier. He was sacked 7 times last week against the Rams, and I know Jared Verse is a hell of a player, certainly.
Braden Fisk. I mean, they got some guys.
I don't know that he's that much better than Dante Fowler, though.
Yeah.
Not that. If the Rams are sacking Jalen Hurts 7 times, you should be penciling in 4 to 5 sacks at the very least for Washington, and then hopefully kind of doing what Dorrance Armstrong did, smacking at that football.
Yeah.
Smack at that football, let that thing loose, and then have one of your guys jump on it the way they did against Jared Goff. I'm not of the belief that he is going to be massively mobile today, and I think you have to get after him to prove it, to get in his head a little bit and say, if you're just going to stand there, you're not just stand there kind of quarterback.
Yeah, I think if you watched that game last week, the Rams had an opportunity to drive down the field and tie the football game up, despite the mistakes that they made in that football game. Saquon Barkley is who we pay attention to on offense. He is all-world at the running back position. Jalen Carter, though, on defense is what I worry about, especially in your first game without Sam Cosmi. How does Trent Scott fare at right guard? Is he the guy that's going to play at right guard? I'll say this first, right? I'm a man first. I apologize when I need to apologize. Trent Scott came in and played like a man possessed last weekend.
He did.
But it's different when you're going up against practice squad guys of the Lions, and then you got to go up against
arguably the next Aaron Donald.
I mean, seriously, he is that damn good at the position. But Dan Quinn kind of alluded to it this week. I don't think there's a foregone conclusion that it is going to be Trent Scott at right guard. Maybe we see a situation where they platoon swap with him or Chris Paul or Andrew Wiley, but they hinted at playing their best 5 offensive linemen. I would have to think any best 5 combo includes Big Corn Lucas out there in some capacity because he has been one of their better guys this year.
I'm looking across Twitter to see if the beat guys have said anything about that. Steve Weiss said on NFL Network today that the expectation is going to be Trent Scott, but I don't really know what he knows versus what the beat reporters know. Or if someone has given him some information to throw him off the scent.
He may have got that from Trent Scott
to do.
directly. I know Steve Weiss is somebody that participates and is a big media member with the HBCU bowl games and things of that nature. And Trent Scott, a Grambling State graduate, may be giving Steve some inside information. So that's going to be interesting to see. But either way, whoever plays, I mean, you have to get multiple set of hands on Jalen Carter. There's not a play where I'm going to let him go one-on-one against one of the interior guys. It's just not smart. It's not a good way to live. I think the key for Washington, though, is last week you saw the emergence of Brian Robinson. I don't think that's going to be the case this week. I think getting the ball on the perimeter is probably your best bet here.
I'm in agreement with you there. We'll see what Kevin Sheehan has to say. He's going to join us on the other side. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. It's your Burgundy and Gold pregame show with Denton Day and Linnell Willingham. You need a space to come watch the game. We got a watch party going as soon as this thing kicks off. The Junkies will be out here. They'll be here at 2 p.m. Come hang out with us. It should be a great time, and Washington could potentially be headed to the Super Bowl when all is said and done. Kevin Sheehan joins us next on 106.7. 3.5 hours from kickoff, we are live at Honor Brewery in Sterling. The Commanders take on the Eagles. You'll get Westwood One coverage starting at 2. You get their full broadcast for the entirety of the football game for the first time in 33 years. The Washington franchise is in an NFC championship. Yeah, we get some cheering going on. We're getting fans start to slowly get into the building, Linnell. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. On the line with us now, we got our guy Kevin Sheehan, who's good enough to jump on with us. Kevin, I've experienced every single emotion today. How are you feeling?
It's surreal because this was always a day for everybody else. Like, we weren't allowed.
Wow.
And we never earned it. Like, Championship Sunday, I just think about over the years, it's like, all right, New England's playing Pittsburgh and Green Bay's playing San Francisco or whatever it was. You know, it was always for everybody else. This is a big day, you know, on the sports calendar. These games are going to be watched by 50-plus million people. And I think, you know, the Super Bowl personally, when you get there 2 weeks later, is a bit anticlimactic, you know, and it's about everything else. This is the last day of the season that is about football, and it's pretty cool to see, you know, this team a part of it.
Kevin, let's get right into the X's and O's of this thing. I was on the air yesterday when Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network breaks the news. Daron Payne officially ruled out with a knee injury. Carl Davis elevated from the practice squad. He actually played a considerable amount of snaps in that second game in Week 16 against Philadelphia. Obviously, losing Daron is a major impact. Do you think it ultimately maybe is the undoing of Washington here today?
I'm glad you said major impact because I kind of sense, and maybe I'm off on this, that a lot of our fans don't think it is a big blow. Daron Payne is a big physical freak who just has not had a great season. You know, it's been up and down. It's been inconsistent. By the way, you guys know this. He's been moved around a little bit. You know, he was moved to defensive end for a significant number of snaps towards the end of the regular season because they had nobody there to set the edge. I guarantee you, if you ask the players in that locker room and the coaching staff, they'll tell you this is a loss. But they've been very good all season long at, you know, next man up. Yeah. And John Allen and Daron Payne and Johnny Newton and Sheldon Day and Carl Davis and really the ends as well and the linebackers are. It was going to be a rotating group to begin with, right? But is it their undoing? No, nothing's been their undoing. Linnell, they haven't stopped the run the entire season, and then they've got 14 wins. So, I mean, as long as number 5's on the other side of the ball, you got a shot no matter what you do anywhere else.
With that said, though, Kevin, and the loss of Daron Payne, we have not seen John Allen play against the Philadelphia Eagles so far this season. What are you expecting from him in the absence of Payne?
Thought he played as well as he's played since he returned last week in Detroit, and that's a hell of an offensive line. And he's going against another one. I expect John Allen to do what he's always done, which is kind of rise to the challenge. He's a mature player. He's feeling it now health-wise. You know, he and Wagner and Chin and Ertz on the offensive side of the ball, along with guys like Wiley and Biotish and Allegretti, people that have kind of played in games like this. I guess Biotish hasn't, but I expect all those guys to step up and be a big part of today.
Kevin, in the first two meetings, Vic Fangio and Cliff Kingsbury have kind of had this chess match going on. Fangio blitzed Jaden Daniels 33% of the snaps in Week 16 compared to just 11 in the first matchup. If you are Vic Fangio here this afternoon, knowing how Jaden Daniels has fared versus the blitz and pressure this year, are you going to send the house after him right away, or do you treat it like a pitcher in baseball where you kind of throw your fastball, then you throw your breaking ball, and then you kind of wait and pick your spots to send pressure?
You never know what you're going to get from him. The only thing you know is on the back end, they're going to try to play everything in front of him. The benefit that the Eagles have had as a team this year is they don't have to manufacture pass rush if they don't want to. They don't have to load a box defensively to stop the run if they don't want to. They're that good. They're that talented. That's a luxury that 80% of the teams in the league just don't have. A defensive coordinator being able to play 4 up front, not blitz, not load a box, play coverage, and still be able to stop the run and rush the passer is such a luxury. But this quarterback is different, and he treated him differently in that second game, and it didn't work for him necessarily. They got 5 turnovers in the game, but Washington scored 36 points, and Jaden threw 5 touchdown passes. But if you're asking me to predict what Vic Fangio is going to do today, I mean, good luck. I don't know what he's going to do, but he'll try to confuse Jaden. He'll try to confuse Cliff Kingsbury, and there's no doubt in their first meeting, and part of it was just the short turnaround. They didn't have a chance to prepare for it, but that was the one game this year where I thought offensively everybody was off and everybody looked a bit confused.
Are you expecting another big game from Diami, Kevin? He's played great the first 2 games.
Yes, he has.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a big game offensively. I mean, we're just talking about the Eagles' defense and Vic Fangio, but I just don't – it's hard for me to envision this offense being stopped. You know, could they self-destruct? Yeah, they could. Could Jalen Carter ruin the game because Sam Cosmi's not in it? They've got to – I'm sure they're game planning for that, and hopefully they won't allow that. But I think there's a lot of quick game early. I don't think we're going to see Jaden dropping back. And when I mean dropping back, I'm talking about pure drop back. He's going to throw the football, but it's going to be quick game. It's going to be quick game in screens. It's going to be quick against zone coverage, you know, over the middle of the field. And Diami will be a big part of that.
Kevin, the running game with Brian Robinson Jr. last week really was a big boost for Washington. Do you think Cliff Kingsbury comes into this game with the same type of patience running the football? Because I look at Philadelphia's front, as we've discussed here in the pregame, it's a really stout group, and we know how important it is for Washington to stay ahead of the sticks as the running game, the way that they do that today.
I think he's going to move the football any way he thinks he can move the football today. I can't imagine it's consistently with yards on the ground. That would surprise me. I think it's really hard to run against Philadelphia. I think they are definitely going to go after Jaden in the zone read game. This is going to be a physical game. It has to be. You know, Doc will tell us, and we've all learned from him, these games are decided by the team that's most physical, and Philadelphia has been that. Washington has to answer it. I don't know if he's going to have an emphasis on trying to establish a run game, but I don't think you can give up on that possibility. But whatever works in terms of moving the sticks and scoring points is what Cliff Kingsbury will do. And at this point, I am totally trusting of him. This team doesn't punt, guys. We don't punt. So whether it's heavy pass to run, whether it's balanced, or whether they run the hell out of the ball today, whatever they decide to do, I kind of trust the game plan because it's worked all year.
Do you have a preference at who fills the shoes of Sam Cosmi, whether it be Trent Scott like it was last week, or maybe bumping Wiley back to a position he played in Kansas City and move Corn Lucas to the outside?
I don't have a preference. Again, they know so much more than we know. I thought Trent Scott played okay last week when Sam Cosmi went out. You know, based on what they want to do and, you know, what the matchups are, I think that we'll know it. It's either going to be Wiley at guard with Lucas in, or it's going to be Trent Scott. I think those are the only 2 options unless you guys have come up with other ones, but I don't have a preference.
Kevin, setting the edge is something that's going to be huge in this football game. Philadelphia's tackles are hulking with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson out on the right side. Washington a little bit undersized at defensive end, but we saw Dante Fowler get a big TFL early in that football game last week. How important is it going to be for these edge rushers to be impactful here today? Maybe not as pass rushers, Kevin, but just setting the edge and trying to keep that monster Saquon Barkley boxed in.
I mean, you got to set the edge. You got to have gap control. You've got all 11 have to be involved on defense in pursuit and in tackling. This is a massive challenge, and obviously a big difference, you know, one way or the other will be Jalen Hurts and his mobility. Is he a part of the run game today, you know, in a typical Philadelphia sense, or is he laboring and or out of it as a runner? It's a big difference, man. You know, They play 11 on 11 in the run game with the quarterback. It's a lot harder to stop. Look, you can't give this guy Cooley. I had Cooley on the podcast, and he was so into this matchup, and he just talked about how gap control, about how fooling Philadelphia with how many you have in the box consistently so that they can't get up on that second level with double teams. You can't let that line get to the linebacker level with double teams or it's over. And so Chin, Martin, walking them into the box, walking them out of the box, making Philadelphia and their offensive line think about this will be huge. But this team has not stopped the run at any point this year. The only time you can look at it and say they did a decent job actually was the second half of the Philadelphia game in Landover. But I don't have a lot of confidence in that, but I'll feel better about it if Jalen Hurts is 70% and isn't a part of the run game. But we saw what Gibbs did last week, and Detroit made a massive mistake taking the ball out of his hands as many times as they did. I don't think Philadelphia will make the same mistake.
Kevin, a couple more for you before we get your prediction, let you get out of here. We're talking with Kevin Sheehan of the Kevin Sheehan Show here on the Burgundy Gold pregame show with Denton Day and Linnell Willingham live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. Outside of Jaden, Kevin, who are you most confident in position-wise for the Commanders today?
That's a good question. I think Eckler. Like he, as long as he's on the field and healthy, fingers crossed, he makes people miss. He's never brought down by that first guy. I actually think right now in the run game, he's got better vision. He kind of is able to get his body into a certain way at point of contact. I feel him with the ball in his hands on offense. I feel great about Terry with the ball in his hands, obviously. Eckler's been kind of a wild card. They missed him terribly when he was out, and he has really been a major plus factor he got back.
Yeah, for sure. One guy that I continue to look at week in and week out, and I was very, not critical, but I didn't understand the signing when it first happened early in free agency, is Zach Ertz. And he has been huge in the red zone for this group. That's going to be a big part of this football game. We know they'll be able to move it in between the 20s. When you get in that low red zone area, Big 86 becomes a super quarterback-friendly target. In a game where you're going up against your former team, you got to feel like Zach Ertz is going to be a big part of this game plan.
Yeah, I like that one too, Linnell. He's been really dependable, and he has really been a guy that Jaden feels great about. And for all the reasons you just mentioned, he's where he's supposed to be. He's a big target. And, there's a sense with him out there that they've got a guy that's, been there and done that before, which he has.
All right, Kevin, who wins? Are we punching the ticket for the first time in 33 years to the final game of the season?
Denton, we've been talking about this. I felt good about him for a while now. I didn't pick him to beat Detroit. I said this is going to be a crazy, the high scoring, one team in the 40s, one team in the 30s. I had that part right, just the wrong teams. Yeah. But I like Washington's chances. I think they're the ones that have the most confidence coming in. I think Philadelphia's offense has looked off and doesn't look complete. It should be a great game. Anything can happen, but I like Washington 24-17.
Oh, I hope you're right. I hope we are celebrating on Monday. Kevin, appreciate it. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on this tomorrow morning.
See you guys in New Orleans.
Thanks, Kevin.
That is Kevin Sheehan, good enough to join us here on the Burgundy and Gold pregame show. Craig Hoffman going to be with us at the top of the hour. You'll hear from the Junkies as well in our second hour. It's a special 3-hour edition of the Burgundy and Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. If you want to come watch the game with us, we kick this thing off with a watch party at 3 p.m. The Junkies will be here at 2. Come hang out with us. Great food, great drink, and hopefully the Commanders punching their ticket to the Super Bowl. Don't go anywhere. We finish up this hour next with Denton Day and Linnell Willingham. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. Denton Day and Leno Willingham. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling, hanging out here. We're about 3 hours from kickoff, Leno, in the first NFC Championship game in Washington. Franchise history since 91. Wow, 33 years. That's older than you and me. Not combined, thankfully, but
About to say, it's 33 years, Denton. It is 12,060 days. It's 1,723 weeks. 289,439 hours via our pal Grant Paulson. So definitely exciting that we finally made it back to this point. We've been discussing our emotions. It's always a crazy thing riding up here. I'm coming all the way from Montgomery County, so I got plenty of time to sit and think about how this thing's going to go. Today I did something I haven't done in a long time. I sat in silence on my ride here, and I just tried to be one with the moment. It just is just super exciting to be a part of, and I was always told growing up that this was never going to be a possibility and that the owner was never going to sell and the team was never going to change the name. Look at where we are now, man. I feel like we're moving on up like the damn Jeffersons.
This is the perfect duality of man.
Yes.
You sat in silence. You know what I listened to on the way over here?
What did you?
I was coming from Arlington, so I had about 45 minutes. Nothing but Kendrick Lamar and SZA.
Wow.
I was getting
Get ready for the Super Bowl.
I was like, I gotta prepare for the songs that I'm going to anxiously sit through at halftime, just to get in the zone. But I'm pumped, man. Like, we talk a lot about revenge games,
yes,
right? And as we get set here for our Baldino's Lock and Key player of the game, our Baldino's Lock and Key player to lock in on Baldino's Lock and Key is your one-stop shop for auto keys and fobs. Visit Baldinos.com. I've been wrestling. Who do I want to give this to? Yeah, I'm very confident in Terry. I think Terry's going to have, if Washington wins, Terry's going to have one of those elite 125, two-touchdown kind of performances. He's going to need that, right? Like, Diami's played great, yes, but it's going to be a big Terry game if Washington wins. But my player to lock in on here, you want to talk about revenge games? It's not Ertz. It's not OZ. It's Brian Robinson. He played the worst game of his football life the last time these two teams played. I'm expecting a bounce-back performance for him. At the very least, just not 2 fumbles and a couple of positive runs. But I'm expecting a decent game from Brian Robinson. I'm hoping that what we saw last week was less about Detroit and more about Washington. Because Detroit's defensive front, not great. I'm hoping that was more just Washington getting their get back a little bit on offense. Obviously, with no Sam Cosmi, that's going to be tough, certainly. But I got Brian Robinson having another really strong performance.
Man, they always say, great minds think alike. And that's why we're two geniuses doing this thing. I want to go with the running back that did not play in the second matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, Austin Eckler, with no Nakobe Dean in the lineup for Philadelphia. One, I think that is a huge point in this game that we're not really talking about enough. He was the guy, you remember, Denton, that they designated as the Jaden Daniels spy. He also was really good defending the flats against the running backs of Washington. I think Austin Eckler has a big day today. I think they try to get him involved early and often. We know Terry is the most, electric weapon on this offense, but there's no guy I trust more to break the first tackle and make the first man miss than Austin Eckler. We saw the spark that it gave Washington last week in Detroit. I think he has a similar type of performance here in a gotta-have-it situation.
He was the best player the first time these two teams faced off. It was the only game
8 for
this
89
season where Jaden looked like a rookie. And Austin Eckler was the best player on the field. You didn't see him in that second matchup. And when Brian Robinson, obviously left the game, you're like, all right, well, I don't know what the running situation is going to look like. Well, it looked like Jay Daniels. But I'm in agreement with you. I think getting Austin Eckler, like the path that they took to get him back and playing in that Dallas game when most of us didn't think that he would, and then kind of getting ramped up in that Tampa game, and then obviously that the Detroit game last week, he played his best game since he returned. I think that's a great selection. I think he's going to have a really strong performance.
I think he's got to. Philadelphia is a really good defense. Cooper DeJean is playing some of the best slot corner in the NFL.
They got the exciting whites back there.
You know what I'm saying? Quinyon Mitchell at corner has been damn good. I think if it's not going to be Austin Eckler, and I hope that it is him, I think Diami Brown has the favorable matchup going up against an older defensive back in Darius Slay. Think about the name of the game when it comes to Diami Brown. It's all about speed. And if you remember, that second Philadelphia game is when he really started to come into his own. I remember it like it was yesterday, man. We were backed up deep in our own territory.
Yeah.
Jaden hits the third step of the drop, and it's 51 yards down the right sideline to Diami Brown. I think he's got to have a big performance in this one as well.
This could be Darius Slay's last game in Philadelphia.
Let's make it an ugly one.
You know, like I'm looking to get on those go balls. I want Diami and
Yes.
Slay. You know, on those intermediate things, maybe I don't, because Slay has incredible football IQ, jumping on the football instincts, all that. But on those deep balls where it's speed versus speed, the young guy's going to get the old guy every single time.
100%.
Every single time. And we have seen that Jaden, he can throw that football.
And look, I don't want to make it, too cliche, but like, Diami's a guy that's got confidence right now.
He does.
And we talked about it last week. It's hard to sometimes overstate, how important coaching is in the National Football League. We had 2 consecutive offensive coaching staffs led by Scott Turner and Eric Bieniemy tell us that Diami Brown wasn't worth a damn. Tell us that Diami Brown couldn't see the field. And I remember in training camp, the whispers were, well, he's going to make the team. Not only did he make the team, he's coming up big when the team needs him the most. I am a big fan of him here this postseason, and I think this hot streak of play continues.
I'm right there with you. All right, when we get back, our guy Craig Hoffman's going to jump on with us. It's the Burgundy and Gold pregame show with Det Day and Leno Willingham. We are live from Honor Brewery, about 3 hours until we kick this bad boy off. Come hang out with us during the game. We got our watch party. The Junkies are going to be out here. It's going to be a great time. Don't go anywhere, though. Craig Hoffman joins us next on 106.7 The Fan. 3 hours from kickoff between the Commanders and the Eagles. It's your Burgundy and Gold pregame show with Denton Day and Linnell Willingham. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. It's starting to fill up here, Linnell. It's going to get loud at 3 o'clock when this thing kicks off. I'm going to be loud at 3 o'clock when this thing kicks off. We'll go to the phones now. Our guy Craig Hoffman, good enough to jump on with us. He's the host of the Hoffman Show 4 to 7 every Monday through Friday on the Team 980. Craig, we're 3 hours away, my friend. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
I think the butterflies are starting to generate a little bit. I need lunch. One of the two things is happening.
Craig, we appreciate you joining us as always, my friend. Before we get into the X's and O's of this thing, you're somebody that's had the privilege of covering this team for the past several years. You were on the beat for several years. Have you gotten the chance to just take a step back this week, Craig, and say, damn, I'm really excited to be doing this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think in some ways, Linnell, it's the first thing I do every week, the last couple of weeks, because when I write, I remember talking, I think it was for Luga about this, but I remember talking to one of the columnists of the Post. It had to be Barry. And, I was talking to him about, like, some of the stuff that I do for my show and comparing it to some of the ways that they work over there in the print world. And we kind of were like, it feels like we do the same thing every week because, like, how many ways can you say Jaden Daniels is amazing? Like, how many times can you say, like, thank God Dan is gone and apparently miserable? That was a fun little thing to wake up to from my friend Don Van Natta yesterday. But, like, so in some ways, we're like, I understand that, like, Quinn and the players and guys like Terry, although Terry has been, I think, reflective as he's gone, but Jaden, certainly a lot of these guys are trying to keep their eyes on one step ahead. Like, I got no bearing on the outcome today. I can look around all I want to. And so when I do the first and 10 for the show every week, I always try to start with the big picture of where we are. And every single week it's just kind of this, can you believe we're here? And yeah, being in it every day probably does give me a little bit more of an appreciation for it. Because I think it's hard, as fans do live it every day, but like you have your job and you have stuff that's going on in your life outside of it. When this thing becomes your job and you're with those guys every single day, even to the extent that the media is, nevertheless, what it's like to actually live it as a player, there's just a different intensity to it. And you're kind of on that emotional roller coaster in a different way because there's just no breaks from it. And so I've never forgotten that, even though now I have, I'm doing on a studio role. But yeah, I definitely have taken the time to kind of look around, appreciate it, understand the differences. And the good thing is, the more I do that, the more I think this is not some flash in the pan. And while I'm trying to enjoy every moment of it, I do think this is the start of something. And there's just no telling how big this start is going to be.
Craig, what was your reaction yesterday when we got the news that Deron Payne is going to be unavailable thanks to that knee injury?
Well, that sucks. That's not helpful. He was a huge deal in that second Philly matchup where they figured something out to stop Saquon. And I mean, the biggest thing they honestly figured out was their offense just was on the field all the time. And there just wasn't a lot of snaps for Saquon or as many snaps, but they certainly also did make the most of when they were out there. I mean, his last, I think, 22 carries went for 40-something yards in that game. And so part of that was Deron playing on the edge and that personnel package they use with the heavier bodies. That said, it's not as devastating as it would have been a couple of weeks ago if Deron misses all of a sudden because John is back. So I saw some numbers floating around yesterday about how bad the Commanders' run defense has been with Deron Payne off the field. And for as many people that think Deron has had a bad year stopping the run, and I'm not trying to tell you he's been awesome, they're way better with him on the field than off. And I was like, well, these numbers are kind of irrelevant because they almost entirely exist without John Allen as a counterbalance. And so can they use John on the edge? Yes. In fact, they've already done it. So that package doesn't necessarily die. The question is, how effective is it when it's now John Allen, say Sheldon Day, Johnny Newton, and Jalen Holmes versus when it was the two first-rounders from Alabama and then the second-rounder this year in Johnny Newton and Jalen Holmes, who's been a revelation on the other edge in terms of run defense. So I think that's the big question. But, yeah, losing a really good player hurts a lot, and this is a bad time to lose a really good player.
We know Terry McLaurin is, really considered the big play threat of this Commanders offense, and he's done a nice job, stretching the field and creating big plays in the passing game. But Austin Eckler, it feels like, Craig, has also been a huge part of this thing. He didn't play in that second matchup against Philadelphia. How important is it to get him going early, and what's your confidence level that he can be a difference maker today?
I mean, confidence level that he can be a difference maker is high, although here's like a wacky stat for you. His highest target share of the entire season was that first Philadelphia matchup. I believe he had 8 catches in that game on 9 targets. Yeah. And that's his heaviest usage of the season, and their offense was terrible and they lost. So, like, can they win without him being a huge factor? Yeah, they did it the second time around in Week 16, but he has been, since he's been back, an enormous part of what they do. The game plan runs to bust a couple big ones. Obviously, what he can do in the screen game. He has been a monster in pass protection. I think that may be one of the biggest underrated parts of his game. And I think there's just a comfortability and a confidence with what they do. And then the last part is it opens up some of their personnel packages. They have leaned really heavy into this pony personnel package where it's Eckler and then either Robinson or McNichols on the field together with either 3 wide receivers. They've done that version of it where there's no tight ends on the field. They've also done versions of it where it's 2 wide receivers, which allows them to, wide receivers kind of a weird group for them. All those guys are good, but you don't feel like you need to have any of them on the field at any given time outside of Terry. So can you get Terry, Austin, Zach Ertz out there while still having Brian Robinson out there, while having Giambi if he's playing great, or if you like a matchup, a Jamison Crowder, like they can mix and match those pieces so much better when he's on the field, and also not lose some of their formation stuff. Cliff is so good at using formations to undress a defense, to give Jaden Daniels information, to create good leverages and matchups. And because Eckler can split out wide, you can get some, like, for instance, heavy personnel on the field because they're like, oh, God, there's 2 running backs. They're probably going to run it. And they come out and empty. And it's like, oh, well, they're definitely not going to run it now because there's no running back there. And so that kind of stuff with Eckler is really, really beneficial, and he's been awesome since he's been back in that regard.
Talking with Craig Hoffman here, the Hoffman Show, 4 p.m. to 7 every Monday through Friday on the team, 980. What about the right guard spot, Craig? Do you want it to be Trent Scott? Do you want them to bump Wiley over to play a position that he once played and then put Corn Lucas at the tackle? How do you foresee that position going? And then they're going to see a lot of Jalen Carter.
What I would like, then, is a magic elixir for Sam Cosby's knee. That is what I would like. More realistically, I think you probably stick with Trent Scott there. He played really well last week. That is no guarantee you're going to play well this week. Period. New sentence. There is never a guarantee you're going to play well against Jalen Carter. He's amazing. He is, he's become one of those dudes. Like, it's year 2, but, like, you got Aaron Donald being like, that's the guy that's closest to me from what I was. And you're like, okay, well, if the man said it, like, who am I to argue? And the quickness, the power. I think the other thing with Donald is the knack for making the big play at the big time. I mean, last week that sack he has on 3rd down as the Rams look like they're about to drive and win the football game and just absolutely steal it after what should have been a Saquon dagger. So I think that the benefit of keeping Wiley where he is you have continuity at the 4 other spots. So you have an understanding from Cliff, like, okay, Andrew Wiley at tackle, I need to provide this kind of help. If I call this kind of play, I expect him to perform at this level. I know if I call this screen out to the right, Wiley can get there. If I call a GT play, a guard tackle pull play, and Wiley's the guard, do I understand who Andrew Wiley is as a guard to maximize him? And I think that's a really open-ended question. They might say, we understand it enough, and the drop-off from Wiley to Cornelius Lucas is relatively insignificant. The drop-off at guard from Wiley to Trent Scott is significant, and we'll take the lack of continuity because that gap, that discrepancy is less than the talent gap, and we'll make it work. I think it's a perfectly fine argument. I just think that it's a lot simpler, it's a lot more straightforward to just operate with 4 of the same guys in the same spots. I think the other thing to watch on that front, though, is you've kind of operated all year, and, Philly's a weird matchup because, Cosby had wars, and he did not win as many as you would like him to win against Jalen Carter. That's how good Jalen Carter is. But you've operated all year with this not all pro, but Pro Bowl level right guard. That means your center can often help to the left. Well, now Nick Allegretti might have to fight a little bit more on his own because you are doubling down on Jalen Carter's side with a backup right guard. So one of the other options, now we're getting super nerdy into O-line stuff, which like makes Logan Paulson happy somewhere, and hopefully I'm not boring the entire audience there, nevertheless, on the radio to sleep here. But like, I think John Bates could play a really important role today. Like, John Bates is a true Y blocking tight end who, in certain situations, you feel okay saying, I need you to block a defensive end. It don't need to be the best block ever. Don't let him be a free runner. Get in the way for 2.5 seconds. Our quarterback will make it right. And now you can double team down with Wiley on Jalen Carter. You leave John Bates on the edge by himself, and I think that is something where they've used a lot of chip help this year. Can you just use John Bates as a sixth offensive lineman sometimes to help out in your pass protection and certain stuff, and then trust that your outstanding quarterback will get rid of the ball on time and understand he's only got 2.6 seconds to do it? I think some of those like creative schematic solutions could be on play as well, on top of just who plays right guard.
Thank you for wetting our whistle with the X's and O's, because that is like a really interesting point, especially when you consider how well Nolan Smith is playing on the edge for that group. It's going to be a really intriguing matchup. Another part of this Eagles defense, Craig, that is going to look a lot different from that second meeting and the first meeting as well, is no Nakobe Dean this time around. When you grind the tape and look at the impact that he has on that defense, does it open up Jaden Daniels to be more impactful as a runner, you think?
Maybe, because I think Dean has more speed to chase him down potentially than Oren Burks. I mean, you mentioned Nolan Smith, by the way, though. If I'm the Eagles, I would probably put Nolan Smith on the offensive right a ton. Like, that's the side Jaden wants to flush to. Obviously, way more scrambles to his right than to his left. So if I can stick a guy who ran a 4.39 at the NFL Combine on the edge, Andrew Wiley, please pin him inside to let Jaden get the edge, because otherwise Jaden might not get the edge. It's one of the few guys in the league who can say that about. But Nakobe Dean would typically be right on his tail chasing him. And that is a big deal. I think the other thing is in the run game, like, Nakobe Dean's an undersized linebacker, but nobody told Nakobe Dean that. That dude hits like a ton of bricks, not just coming downhill and tackling running backs, but the way he'll chin a guard and like be involved in the run game and just eat blocks. So I think, that element of their run defense is something I would want to test. Like, can the Commanders actually run? Like, let's sink a double team on Jalen Carter, make him beat two, and then hope that Oren Burks is just not as good as Nakobe Dean, and can Brian Robinson get going in this game? Can Eckler get going in this game? That's something that I would want to test early if I was Cliff. So, the Nakobe Dean thing is huge, but I mean, Zach Bond has been an otherworldly player this year. I mean, what he's done at linebacker, the speed he plays with, the physicality, the power, the range as a pass zone defender, like, they've still got a lot of speed and a lot of know-how in the middle of the field. It's just not as much as they had when Dean was out there.
All right, Craig, last one before we get your predictions, let you get out of here. Last time these two teams played, Jaden threw 5 touchdown passes. I'm going to, I'm a little bit of a gambler here. I'm going to set that number at 3.5. Does he go over or under that?
Oh, man. I feel pretty good about them winning if he goes over. I'll tell you that much. I'm going to go under, but I think it definitely could be 3. Like, I mean, I think the problem, Denton, is this is going to become, I think, a lower scoring possession game. I know Kevin gave out the under on the smell test this week with you guys, and I think that's probably smart just from a sheer possession standpoint. Like, do they want to milk the clock? We know Philly does. Like, if this game gets into a track meet, then that favors Washington. I also said that last week, and how'd that go? Yeah. So what do I know about any of this stuff? This is why I hate the predictions part of these shows, because like, I can give you a lot of like, if this happens, then that, here's some things to watch. But like, trying to predict how it's going to play out, those jokers hit the over in the first half last week. Like, what do I know? So, I do think this is probably, though, a lower scoring, possession oriented game. And then the question is like, is Jaden sitting on 3? He's got the ball with 1:58 to go again, and let's go make that sucker 4 and get out of here with a win. Like, that to me is kind of the where the rubber meets the road.
You mentioned Brian Robinson, 2 fumbles in that last football game against Philadelphia. Denton has perfectly coined it, probably the worst game of his professional career. Knowing the mental makeup of that young man, how eager do you think he is to get back involved and help this team out offensively for the second consecutive week? Because I think they're going to need it.
I mean, I think there's definitely that. I mean, human nature, there's always there's room for that kind of, extra storyline, but it's also the NFC Championship game. Like, these guys are all juiced up to the max. But I think that, the running game has to know, like, this is going to be hard. Philly's defense is, like, I don't say bizarrely, like, they're well coached, they're super talented, so it's not bizarre, but, like, you have to understand, this is the defense that gives up fewer explosive plays than anyone in football and is also arguably the stoutest defense against the run. So they're somehow able to do both. They're able to stop you at the line of scrimmage, and they're able to stop you over the top. And so if you can just keep the offense on schedule and say, okay, we have to find that middle. We have to see if we can get 4.5 yards a carry and 6 yards quick game, and then 4.5 more yards, and then 6 yards more in quick game. Like, just control the ball, and fine, you're going to make us drive 15 plays. We'll do it time and time again because that's who they've been this year. Washington is the rare team that can actually do that. And so, yeah, B-Rob doing his part in that would be absolutely enormous. I think you're going to see a lot of traps and whams and try to use Jalen Carter's aggressiveness against him. B-Rob's had some nice carries on some of those plays this year. He's just got to run both patient and purposeful. Like, know the timing, know when you're supposed to go, and then bury your head and just trust that the offensive line is going to do their job and go. It's not going to work every time, but sometimes, it's going to hit just right, and just right might be 4 yards. Maybe you slip a tackle and then you get 10. But I think he definitely looked fresher and better last week, more confident last week. That chat he had with Dan Quinn seemed to go a long way, and I'm sure he's fired up and ready to go today.
All right, Craig, who wins?
On Friday, I mealy-mouthed Eagles at the end of my show because I think that if these teams play 10 times, the Eagles win probably 6 and the Commanders win 4. But here's the beauty of the playoffs, boys. It's only got to be one. And in the 48 hours since that show ended, or however many it is, I was told there would be no math. I got a good feeling. So I'm gonna say that the Commanders are gonna win, and it's gonna be a burgundy and gold party headed to New Orleans.
Craig, I hope you're all right. To hear that, my friend. Enjoy this one, my friend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Thanks, Craig.
You guys as well. Thanks, boys.
That is Craig Hoffman, good enough to join us. He's the host of the Hoffman Show, 4 p.m. to 7 every Monday through Friday on the Team 980. When we get back, you'll hear the Junkies preview of this matchup. Chris Russell going to join us at 12:30. He's Leno Willingham. I'm Denton Day. We're live from Honor Brewery until 2. We got a watch party starting up at 3 for this one to see if Washington can punch their ticket to a Super Bowl. Don't go anywhere. You're listening on 106.7 The Fan. It's Burgundy Gold pregame live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. Chris Russell going to join us in about 5 minutes. He's Leno Willingham. I am Denton Day. But every week we give you the pregame set of the Junkies. They gave their thoughts on this one. They'll be here in about an hour and a half, 90 minutes. You'll get Cakes and JP out here, but they stopped by to give us a preview of this one earlier this week. All right, we're having tech issues, so we will get that Junkies segment here going shortly. Lena, how are you feeling? Like I told you when I got in here, I'm a mix of emotions. Every single emotion I have had. How are you feeling now that we're 90 minutes into the show? We're about 2.5 hours away from kickoff with Washington, Philadelphia.
Our on-site engineer, Meadow Chris, gave the best analogy to describe how I feel. Last week, watching Washington win a divisional game for the first time in my life was like, okay, I had my first kid. I was nervous. I was a wreck. This time around, I feel more comfortable. I've been here before. The anxiety's there. The paranoia is there, but it's everything you want leading up to a football game. I just can't help but think about the injury situation for Washington on both sides of the football. I couldn't think of a worse game to go into without Sam Cosmi and without Daron Payne. I don't want to be a negative Nancy here. I'm just being realistic, and now we're seeing the $200 million running back walk into the arena, Jalen Hurts, and he's got on this beige bottom, and he's limping awkwardly. Not really much of a limp.
Does
but
he have a fedora on?
I mean, he's a loser.
It looks like
he is a loser. I can't stand anything about this dude. He's the biggest weirdo at the quarterback position to me. But in reality, though, man, it's an exciting game we're getting ready to see. The
All
injury
of his press
situation,
conferences sound like me on Instagram
Yeah.
when I was like 17.
You know, I'm Jalen Hurts.
It's
and
nothing but motivational quotes that
I'm
he's
Mr.
yanked.
Perfect, and my jawline is perfect, and my ice is bigger than the rappers, but my team doesn't need me to throw for more than 140
That is true,
yards.
by the way. Athletes' jewelry is so much better than
Yeah,
rapper jewelry.
because they got real money. These are multimillionaires, literally. But no, I think not having Cosme and not having Daron Payne is what really is coloring my thoughts of this football game right now. Trent Scott played really well in relief of Sam Cosme a week ago. I hope he can replicate that. I just am curious to see the chess match between the coaching staffs. Anytime you get to go up against a team for a third time in a regular season, you know them like the back of your hand. You can throw the records out of the window. It's about who's going to execute at the higher level. And knowing the way this offense functions, talking about Washington's, I just have a hard time seeing Philadelphia outscore Washington, and that's what it would take to win. So I don't know, man. I guess I'm getting more confident as we get closer to kickoff, but I'm a nervous wreck. I can't lie.
All right, you'll get that Junkie segment at the end of this hour. When we get back, our guy Chris Russell going to jump on with us. We'll get his take on the game. He was very optimistic this week. We'll see if that optimism continues. It's a Burgundy Gold pregame show live from Honor Brewery in Sterling with Denton Day and Leno Willingham on 106.7 The Fan.
All right, boy.
It's a Burgundy and Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. We're about 2.5 hours away from kickoff of the NFC Championship. You get the Commanders, you get the Eagles with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. You can watch us on YouTube. You don't want to come out. I encourage everybody to come out here. We got a watch party going on at 3. The Junkies are going to be out here. They'll be out here in about 90 minutes to come hang out. It's going to be a great environment. It was great last week, Linnell, when we were here against Detroit. Hopefully it's better than that, and hopefully we are celebrating by the end of it like we were last week as well. You can watch us on YouTube as well at 1067 The Fans YouTube page. We got a guy from Korea checking in with a little HTTR. We appreciate that.
Ni hao.
Now we'll go out to is that Korean? I don't know. Now we'll go out to the phones. Our guy Chris Russell is live in Philadelphia.
With the Roosterettes, apparently.
Rooster, what was yesterday like at the Hard Rock, my friend?
Well, it was kind of crazy, boys. It was a good time. I don't know exactly how many people came out there, but I know there were a lot of Commanders fans, a lot of obviously Redskins fans, a lot of hail to the Redskins. A lot of fight song singing and how about this? I mean, we know things have changed, obviously, on the field and in the front office and in the ownership structure. But, guys, I'm just standing there, and Mitchell Rels walks in. I'm like, okay, like the co-owner of the team is at a fan pep rally, and I didn't know he was coming. And kudos to Tailgate's Head, who arranged it all, and a bunch of us from the media were there, and then London Fletcher walks in, and Jaden Daniels' mom, and Terry McLaurin's dad, and try to spend time with as many different people as we can. But I mean, A, it's a big game, and B, it's a different organization.
You've been on the road covering this team for several years, Chris Russell. Can you compare, or how would you compare, rather, last night's environment to anything you've been a part of? Because the videos you posted on social media, it made me literally want to get on a Greyhound and drive up to Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've been part of some pep rallies and, some exciting watch parties. I mean, the team has always had a good traveling fan base, especially to the more exotic areas, your New Orleans, your Tampas, your, out west, desirable places, right? So I can't say that I have never seen something similar to that. But the vibes and the energy, guys, and not to mention all the people, the dignitaries, if you will, that walked into that place, the vibes and the energy, because what you guys didn't see was all the fans and maybe 500, maybe more streaming throughout the night, whatever. But there was an entire restaurant that you guys did not see full of Commanders fans, full of Burgundy and Gold. So it was like everybody, first of all, they'll be well represented today. Let's just start that, right? I think TickPick or whatever it was came out and said 20% of tickets sold on TickPick were from Maryland and or the Virginia, area. So I don't know how many it'll be, but I don't know how many it'll be, but it'll be a couple of thousand, right? The bottom line is the vibes and the energy that I got from talking to fans, from talking to Terry's dad, from talking, to Jaden's mom, again, to, just having different conversations with people that were there or, like, hey, I can't believe this has turned around this quick, but this is the way it's supposed to feel like. We're not just on a magic carpet ride here. We're on a, hey, you know what? It's an about time carpet ride. It's a they got it right carpet ride. And that's, I think, the difference for me in covering all these playoff teams that I've covered in 2012 and 2016 and 2020 is they didn't back their ass way, ass way into the front door here. Yeah. They earned this. They knocked it down. They kicked it down, and they keep kicking it down.
Chris Russell joins us. He's the host of the Chris Russell Show Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. on the Team 980. Rooster, what do you think they're going to be doing at that guard position? Is it Trent Scott? Is it Wiley? I've seen everything under the sun suggested. What direction do you think they go?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is they probably start Trent Scott just because that's the way they chose things last week. But that's an in-game adjustment as opposed to a pre-game adjustment. We obviously haven't seen them, just a couple of players, guys, and a couple of, personnel are out on the field right now as I look over and through the press box windows here. So we don't have even the pregame in uniform lineups yet, right? But my guess would be that they don't want to upheave two positions, meaning if you move in Wiley, and I understand why they didn't do it during the game last week. If you move in Wiley, then you have Cornelius Lucas at right tackle. Okay, fine. That I understand you still have Trent Scott as backup, all that. But if you just put in Trent Scott at right guard, even though that's a challenge for obvious reasons, I think you allow yourself to have a little bit more continuity and a little bit more stability and a little bit of maybe, I don't know, a short. Don't forget, Wiley, played guard, but he's not the biggest frame guy in the world, right? And so you kind of wonder if that would be to his disadvantage in a phone booth at right guard as opposed to tackle. So I would like them. I would like them to stay with Trent Scott and see how that goes. And then if you have to make an adjustment because it's really bad, and, oh, by the way, it's against Jalen Carter a lot, well, then you have to make an adjustment. But we also know he's not going to be, one-on-one with Jalen Carter all game long. They're going to double. They're going to chip. They're going to rub. They're going to do all sorts of things to help out whoever is there.
Chris, one big difference that, we'll see today relative to the first two games is no Nakobe Dean defensively for Philadelphia. How do you anticipate Washington trying to exploit that offensively? Because you remember, Chris, in that first matchup, he was kind of designated as that QB spy for Jaden Daniels when he was a little bit nicked up.
Yeah, that's an excellent point because Zach Bonds had a great year, but Nakobe Dean was really kind of on the rise, and he had the speed and the athleticism, to contain and to control. So I think, first off, my guess is that they're going to try and run the ball more to the perimeter today. And certainly the screen game is going to be a factor, as it always is, but maybe even more of a factor. Remember, Austin Eckler had a big day on that Thursday night game. He didn't obviously play in the rematch here, but as a screen receiver, right? But I think the perimeter run game is going to be something that you'll probably see more of this week because you're trying to stay away from Jordan Davis. You're trying to stay away from Jalen Carter as much as you can, trying to get out on the edge, out on the perimeter. And maybe because they don't have Nakobe Dean, they can expose the Eagles a little bit in terms of that side-to-side athleticism. Now, obviously, you're going to run the football up the middle from time to time, and you're going to do it, and you're going to just take your chances, and you're going to hope that Brian Robinson and or whoever can break a tackle or can get a couple of yards and get you in positive 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7, that type of thing. But to me, that would be my guess, is stretching the Eagles a little bit more horizontally through the run game, toss cracks, getting out on the outside zone, all that stuff to kind of try and not only wear those big guys out up front, but also to take advantage of, again, no Nakobe Dean.
Chris Russell with us here, the host of the Chris Russell Show, 1 to 4 p.m. every Monday through Friday on the team at 9:80. He joins Burgundy Gold pregame live. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling, about 2.5 hours prior to kickoff here, Roost. Obviously, the last time Jaden played this team, he had 5 touchdowns. Maybe that number is a little high, but what are you expecting in terms of his production and performance against this Philadelphia defense, seeing them for the third time?
Yeah, I think we have to factor in, obviously, that they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson early in the third quarter, right? That's one. Two, that game was a little bit wacky. They had a couple of coverage breakdowns, one on the first Jamison Crowder touchdown that got them back in the game at 14-7, one on the Alameda Zacchaeus, big, 49 yards, guys? I don't remember exactly what the yardage was, where they had, I think, 12 on the field, and they still botched it and all that stuff. So I don't know if you're going to have the same set of circumstances. As a matter of fact, I would bet against that and say you're probably not going to. But here's the one thing that I come back to, and I've said all week. Jaden Daniels has not beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and or the Detroit Lions with his legs. It's been a part of the game, obviously. It's been a part of the threat. He's run it, 28, 29 times over the last 2 games, but I don't feel like he's beat teams with his legs like he did at times down the stretch in the regular season in these here playoffs. And because of that, and because zone defense, and because, they don't blitz as much generally in Philadelphia, which I don't expect them to blitz as much today, because of that, I think Jaden's going to have to beat you with his arm. And that's been the biggest, to me, thing this week that I've kind of harped on is Jaden needs to do what he's already done twice in these here playoffs and beat the Eagles with his arm. Can he? I hope so. I think so. I think, you remember Terry McLaurin beat Quinyon Mitchell for a beautiful touchdown. Remember the big 50-yard touchdown, touchdown that set up the touchdown, the 50-yard strike from inside their own 5 to De'Ami Brown up the Commander's sideline. There are big plays to be had against a zone defense if you find them. And if you give Jaden a tick, and if you and now that Jaden is obviously 100% healthy, which the last time we were here, I should say, we weren't sure about that, and it pretty much looked the case. I think he can be effective enough. I don't know if he's going to throw for 300, guys, but if he throws for 250 and they get more out of his legs today, then I think the Commanders' offense is going to rock and roll and probably score 27-ish points, somewhere in that range. The key for me is doing it both with his arms and his legs. They need both to be operating at peak efficiency today. And I know that sounds simple, but I don't think just his arm or just his legs is going to get the job done today.
Chris, I was on the air yesterday when Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network broke the news that Daron Payne was going to be out. Completely took the wind out of my sails. You know how confident I've been in this group. But with no Daron Payne, Chris, explain to us the impact that has, because it feels like from taking calls and reading social media, fans act as if it's no big deal.
Yeah, well, that's because the fans, I answered this on. Well, I'm just saying. I mean, on Sirius XM radio last night, they asked me the same thing, and I said, well, the fans are non-moved by this because they can't stand Daron Payne. Listen, I know he hasn't been effective enough for the money that they pay him. Got it. But there have been times, and we've all seen it. We've all talked about it, right? Where you can see the impact, and I think one of those times was in that Tampa game against, before he broke his finger, right? And now you add the knee to it, and then he gets knocked out of this game, which I got to be honest with you guys. I thought, okay, he's questionable. He'd probably play, maybe limited, maybe a lower snap count. I did not think he would be ruled out on Saturday. But the bottom line is at times they have looked more the part with Jerzon Newton, with Sheldon Day, with what's his name that got called up from the practice squad. That's slipping my Carl Davis, right? And then the other big part of this, and I know we've all talked about this, is Jonathan Allen did not play in either one of these two regular season matchups. Right. And John Allen, whatever you want to say about him, I mean, I think he's the better run defender of the two, number one. And number two, I think he's had, 8 quarterback pressures in the 2 playoff games. So, I mean, I'm really hoping that at least it offsets the loss of Daron Payne, if not, sort of makes up for it, and maybe a little bit more is what I would guess. But, I mean, it's a notable loss because obviously your rotations are hurt, your depth is hurt, your ability to do everything is hurt just by losing a key piece. And obviously when you look at, if you believe the philosophy, football games are won at the line of scrimmage. They're missing their best offensive lineman in Sam Cosmi, 1, and 2, and maybe some would argue that, and 2, they're missing their highest paid defensive lineman, and that's a tough task going against this Philadelphia team, even though they are compromised to some degree. And, obviously we'll find out how mobile and how good Jalen Hurts is in just a couple of hours.
Chris, it seems like the plan is going to be the Marshawn Lattimore sticking to his side, not going to follow A.J. Brown. What do you think is going to come from Marshawn Lattimore today? I'm hoping that we get his first interception as a member of the team.
I mean, that would be great. Good time for it, D-Day. Good time for it. Yeah, that's what I would expect. I mean, of course, everybody remembers in the matchup in Landover, right? He had the 3 defensive pass interference penalties in the third quarter, right? At least one of those, I would say, was a very dicey call. I'm not like, all 3 sucked or anything like that. No. He also gave up a touchdown on a slant to A.J. Brown in that game. He also gave up a couple of other plays to A.J. Brown, but he also made some big plays in coverage tackling in pass defense in that game as well, right? He obviously wasn't here for the first match, or he was on the team, but he was injured for the first matchup. So to me, I think Sandler still has proven that he can be physical enough and smart enough and football IQ enough to at least challenge and deal with A.J. Brown. And even though he's outmatched in terms of like size. He doesn't lack it physicality-wise. So what I'm hoping for, big picture-wise, is this secondary: Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey Sandersdill, Noah Benagane, obviously in nickel, and the two safeties, Chin and Quan Martin. They are as physical, I think, and as good at tackling secondary as you're probably going to find across the board. And that is going to be really important, not only in coverage against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, yes, and quick passes, quick slants, all that stuff, but against Saquon Barkley. As we know, guys, they can give up 5 yards a carry or whatever it is to Saquon Barkley. You can't have 5 turn into 50 or 6 turn into 60 or 7 turn into 70 like it happened a couple of times in the regular season, one, in this matchup, and like it happened twice last week against the Rams. That better tackling secondary, I hope, as the last line of defense, is really important in that area.
Chris, one thing that was kind of an underrated bonus for Washington in that second matchup at Northwest Stadium in Week 16 was special teams. One, their ability to fly down the field on special teams, and then Luke McCaffrey had a couple of pretty chunk returns that set Washington up with really good field position. Yep. How important do you expect the team's aspect to be today?
That's a really good point. And I've spent so much time talking about the place kicking situation for both teams this week, but you're right, Linnell. McCaffrey was I remember talking to him after the game about that. And remember, he was targeted for that last Jaden interception over the middle with about 3 minutes left, which I thought ended that game, and then had the big kickoff return after that and had several throughout that game. And you're right. I mean, that could be a huge factor. I mean, even with Eckler back, I mean, it seems, and last week, I don't even think they had an official return, right? I fully expect that to be a part of it. I don't know exactly if he'll be able to replicate the success, but I will tell you this, at least just walking into the stadium, and of course, conditions are different inside the stadium, but I'm looking right now at the field goal post, and if it holds up this way, it's not super windy or anything like that. So hopefully he'll be able to have, if he gets a chance to return, a couple of clean returns, and hopefully he will be able to give them at least position at the 30-yard line, because this team is going to need it. This is the best defense, as we know, from front line to back line, that this team has played in these playoffs, and arguably since the last regular season matchup. So you need every 2 yards, every 5 yards that you don't have to grind out with the offense, and that could come from McCaffrey or Jamison Crowder, obviously, on punt returns.
All right, Roos, 2 wins.
Guys, I don't know if I'm jinxing them. I hope I'm not. But I felt pretty good about the Commanders all week. Listen, I do not think this is going to be easy. I think it's going to be really, really difficult to win this game for a variety of reasons, some of which we've touched on. But I got them winning 24-21.
No, he didn't.
Roos, we appreciate it, man. I hope you are correct in that.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of the show. Miss you guys.
That is Chris Russell. You can hear the Chris Russell Show 1 to 4 p.m. every Monday through Friday on the team at 980. We got Doc Walker joining us at the top of the hour. Don't go anywhere. It's the Burning Gold pregame show with Denton Dale and Willingham. It's a Burgundy Gold pregame show live from Honor Brewery in Sterling, about 2 hours away from kickoff between the Commanders and the Eagles. A berth in the Super Bowl on the line. Doc Walker going to be with us in about 5 minutes. He's Leno Willingham. I am Denton Day. You told me during the break, Leno, you're getting fired up.
I'm fired up.
You're getting fired up.
We've reached that point in the afternoon, man. I said it each and every game day during this postseason. It's been like a wave of emotions for me. I was an absolute sicko driving all the way here, an hour drive from Montgomery County, no music, just all vibes. Looking at the country roads as we made our way out here, and I'm fired up for it, man. I think I was nervous about not having Duran and Sam Cosby in this football game, but I keep forgetting we quite literally have the baddest man on the damn planet at the quarterback position. If you're in here at Honor Brewing, can you give it up for the damn quarterback?
I'll give you a hell yeah. How about
Let's go.
The environment, as you can hear here, is crazy.
Raucous.
And it's filling up as we get closer to the game time. If you need a place to watch it, come hang out with us. The Junkies are going to be here in about an hour. I saw Valdez wandering around here somewhere, so he's already in the building.
A resident Raven in the house.
The other bit season boy, Drab's going to be out here shortly as well. The Junks will be here in about an hour. I can't wait, though, because you got Jaden Daniels, and if you got Jaden Daniels, you got yourself a chance. He busted their ass the last time they played this Philadelphia defense. I don't anticipate anything different today.
I don't either, man. It seems like we've said it all year long. Whenever the stakes are the highest for Jaden Daniels, he plays his best football. Well, guess what, brother? It gets no bigger than today. Well, unless it's next week going to the Super Bowl. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I just expect him to be the cerebral assassin that he's been all season long. I've been talking to my friends during the week, making quarterback comparisons. And at first last week, I was talking about Lamar Mahomes, right? The combo of Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes. But the more and more you watch what he has on his plate pre-snap and how cerebral he is, it's Tom Brady. It's similar to the GOAT Tom Brady, man. The football's coming out of his hand all the time. It's always going to the right guy. I'm just excited to watch him continue to grow and develop. But the hell with the development today. I need to see the final version of Jaden Daniels. He's got to be electric in order for this team to win.
Yeah, that mentality that some of us had last week of we're just happy to be here.
Oh,
out the window.
Yeah.
Out the window.
Completely.
Go in there, go win a football game. There's very few people in the market that know more about going to and winning a Super Bowl than Doc Walker. He's going to join us when we get back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show with Denton Day and Leno Willingham. The DOC is with us on the other side. It's Burgundy Gold pregame. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. This place starting to fill out a little bit. We're 2 hours away from kickoff in the NFC Championship game. You get Westwood One coverage at 2, but you got to come out here and hang out with us at Honor. The Junkies are going to be out here in about an hour, Linnell, and Washington has an opportunity to punch their ticket to a Super Bowl for the first time in 33 years. There are very few people in our market, Linnell, that know more about a Super Bowl than our guy Doc Walker.
We had to get a world champion.
We had to get a world champion on here. DOC, how are we feeling about 2 hours from kickoff?
What's going on, player?
It's all good, man. I'm in attack mode.
Love it. Short and sweet from the DOC.
Short and sweet.
Doc, we were actually watching you in the NFC divisional round of game, I think it was, against Dallas. I'm watching you on the edge. The old number 88 flashes across the screen. Put your playing career to the side for a second here. You have been one of the most prominent media voices in this market ever since your playing days ended. How special is it for you to get to cover this thing here today, man?
Well, it's not a lot of fun until we win. You know, it's because it's not entertainment. To me, it's torture. Because I know how desperate you feel when you're out there, because the loser is done for the entire season. And unlike a lot of people want you to believe that next year will be better, you don't know what next year brings. You'll never be in the room with the same teammates. This is the only shot you have with this team and this staff, because people move on. They don't stay the same. They move on. So you got to embrace that. You got to play with desperation. Otherwise, you'll be done.
What have you made, Doc, of the mentality of this group as you've watched them move throughout the course of the postseason? Like, it kind of felt like, at least from a fan base, you're happy to be there in the wild card, you beat Tampa. Then you're happy to be there in Detroit, and then you beat Tampa. I can tell you, for me personally, forget this happy to be here thing. I'm trying to go out there and win the damn football game. But what have you seen from this mentality of the team and the coaching staff?
Well, they're built for it. I mean, you know, fans are fans. It's like cheerleaders. It's a great backdrop. But you're not going to win a game by any of us. We can't play. The guys in that room can play. They're in shape. They're dedicated. They're not messing around. And so they have built this culture because they got rid of all the phony people that hung around the building, all the frauds. And these people are real. They're not doing ads. They're not fake. They're not into social media. They don't give a damn about PR. They're into kicking ass. And that's why they've gotten results.
100%. We were talking about it yesterday, man. I know Daron Payne is a big deal for us as fans, but from a player's perspective, when you're going into a big game and you're down one of your top hogs, what is that mentality in the locker room, and how do you get geared up to play without him?
Well, you prepare for this. The only people, I mean, your family, they're worried about him or whatever.
Right.
The guys it's an opportunity to show that you should have been playing. Everybody behind someone in his heart has got to believe he's just as good or better if given an opportunity. Otherwise, you don't make it in the league. There's nobody that trains to be a backup. That's only what people who've never played say. No warrior in there doesn't believe he can't get the job done. And if that's the case, then the staff has failed because he shouldn't be on your team. Nobody should be on that roster that doesn't want to play. There's no such thing to me as a backup. That's just a guy that hadn't had a chance to show you his stuff yet.
I agree with that, Doc. What have you made of John Allen and his return? I thought he was excellent last week. Obviously, he'll have a bigger load with no Daron Payne in the lineup, but Philadelphia hasn't seen John Allen at all this year. He wasn't in either of the first two matchups. How much of an impact do you think he's having this afternoon?
Whenever they have their awards banquet at the end of it, he'll be an award winner simply by the sheer effort he put in rehab. The injury is the injury. That's remarkable. But what he did to keep the rest of his body in tune, he had to work his butt off in a way we've never, ever seen. You can't even imagine it. Yeah. Then he got on the field and just jacked himself up. And his success has allowed Wagner to just thump the trump card. Because Wagner and Ertz are the two silent MVPs.
Yeah.
Because you've got production and leadership. Those guys been there, done that. But without John Allen, none of this happens defensively. And he's been a load bearer. And he's always been that. But now he's got a chance to prove it for the moments that if they've ever underachieved, they make up for all of that here and right now. Now he just needs one of these puppies to match him. Because they need a contribution from somebody on that front. Because Saquon is no joke. And you're not going to talk him out of a good game. You got to knock his behind out.
Doc, I'm glad you mentioned some of the veterans on this football team. I remember when Zach Ertz was first announced that he was signed back in the start of free agency. I said, what the hell does Zach Ertz have left in the tank? Boy, has he proven me wrong. You know the tight end position more than anyone else. When it comes to his impact in this football game, going up against his former team, how revved up do you think he is for this opportunity, and how impressed have you been by not only his play on the field, DOC, but the leadership, as you just spoke about?
Seeing is believing. His body of work, he showed you. He's done everything plus some. And the older you get, the more he knows that every game could be his last game. And that's how he plays. What do you think Wags thinks about? It could be his last game.
Yeah.
That's how they come out and play. And when that happens, your teammates see that. You think a guy wants to make a mistake that costs Wagner or Ertz their last game or send him out as a loser? Are you serious? No way. Nobody wants that burden. When DQ talks about playing for your brotherhood, first of all, you have to be in one to understand it. And most people just haven't. It's no disrespect. They just haven't. They're talking a make-believe game. It all sounds great. But most people that are talking are scared of the dark. These people that actually do this stuff, it ain't a joke to them. It's serious business. And you'll see today, they'll be on display. And the team that's under the pressure are the cover boys. It's the Eagles. Great team. Physically intact. Mentally, there's a few wires that are loose, and everybody knows it. Started last
the
year.
Head coach.
Well, it may or may not. Crazy doesn't mean it's wrong. Buddy Ryan, you think he was sane?
Right.
Ditka, you think Ditka was sane? No, I'm into crazy. But when it's dysfunctional, you got an issue. Yeah. And we just hope it lasts one more day because it makes it that they're susceptible right now. All we got to do is force them to turn on each other because they're close.
You don't think A.J. Brown's reading on the sideline is helping the team morale out?
Well, you know and I both know. That only works if it works.
Right.
The moment it doesn't, they're going to be pointing fingers. They're going to be blaming people. They're just, all they needed was an unselfish team like the Commanders to come in and push them over the ledge. And a young star in JD5 to come in there and push them over the ledge. All we got to do is not turn it over, not help them beat us, and go in there and slit their throat. We do that, then we go to New Orleans.
Man, forget push him over the ledge, Doc. I'm trying to Spartan kick
I'm about
those
to say,
Eagles
man, super
off
kick
the
him over the ledge,
Give me
man.
a little bit of sweet chin music. I want to get your thoughts on Brian Robinson. I think he's in for a revenge game. He played the worst game of his football life the last time these two teams played. What do you expect from him today? Hopefully at least better than 2 fumbles.
Well, last week was an indication that he's back from the dead. I just need last week. Give me last week. We're good. But if you go 2 weeks ago, I can't use him.
Right.
Because this is it. That's the beauty of single elimination. There's no excuses. I need a grown-ass man throwing the mail against a ferocious front. And I don't know who we start. I don't know if Trent, I'm pulling for Trent, but I don't coach. All I know is I prefer whoever we have over Cosme if he's hurt. If you put a wounded stud out there against that dude, he would have murdered him.
100%.
Because a guy with pride See, Cosby would have never pulled himself out. He got too much pride. So give me a young bull. That's exactly what we have. Give me 2 young guys healthy. If we have to double them up, let's go fight. I'm not worried about us.
Yeah.
I just hope we don't help them, because the Philly fans, they're going to turn against them immediately.
Yeah.
It's going to be anarchy.
At the first sign of adversity, right? Yeah.
Exactly, because they're built for failure. When the first group is going on there and kick their ass, it's happened over and over and over again. We just got to finish it.
Doc, you played with some tremendous special teams units in your career. Luke McCaffrey was super impactful in the return game in the last time these two teams played. When you got 2 starters in Jeremy Chin and Mikey Samerstill playing on your kickoff unit, what does it say about the pride of that group and the mentality of those 2 players?
It means they want to win.
Yeah.
And they want to win now, and they know they're running out of time. If James Arthur Monk could be on your kickoff and punt return team, why could anybody else not? Yeah. Darius, our starting corners were on punt return.
Yeah.
I mean, Dexter Manley was on punt. Charles Mann, Worrell Grant, Jeff Bostic, everybody played on teams. Why wouldn't you? I mean, if you are building, you're trying to put your best 11 out on every instance. You want to win every play. Yeah. I don't understand the people. Well, I do understand. They just don't know. But anybody that's been through this will tell you there are no plays off, and we could win it or lose it on any play. So why would you undercut yourself? Were you going to wait for next year? That's fantasy. They've done that for, 32 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a con job. And you're dealing with some of the dumbest executives. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you're smart. It just means you were good at something that had a high value system. Well, it ain't pro football. We've seen that over and over and over again. Now you got the right combination of people up top.
Yeah.
We got a perfect ecosystem. Let's not F it up. Let's go handle our business, and let's get to New Orleans.
All right, Doc, I'll do your favorite thing to get you out of here. Give me a prediction.
Well, ask your coach, Sheehan. I called Kevin. He's going to handle my prediction. I don't know how to not see us winning. If we lose, I'll be shocked.
Wow. Strong words.
That's strong words. Doc,
Appreciate you,
I
DLC.
appreciate it. Doc will be on post-game as soon as this one ends. Him and Toby Altside, you'll be able to call him after the game. Doc, I hope you and Toby are celebrating when this final whistle blows.
I don't run with losers.
Thanks, Doc.
That is DOC Doc Walker, good enough to join us. Linnell, before we get to a break and we play the Junkies preview, you just showed me a tweet. We talked a lot about guys that Washington's going to be missing. No Sam Cosmi, no Daron Payne. Well, it's official. The starting center for Philadelphia, Cam Jurgens, he's out.
Wow.
So they're shuffling around on the offensive line. Obviously, losing Daron Payne stinks, but now with Landon Dickerson playing center, who doesn't normally play center, that could give Washington an opportunity to get after Jalen Hurts. But really, maybe some fumbling, not fumbling, actually fumbling, hopefully actually fumbling, but maybe a little bit of confusion in some of the running attack with a new center. There might be an opportunity for Washington to take advantage with Landon Dickerson at center rather than their regular starter, Cam Jurgens.
You bet your ass it's an advantage for the Washington Commanders. I think it's huge. You don't have Daron Payne. They don't have Cam Jurgens. So now the playing field, in my opinion, evens itself out a little bit. Tyler Steen's going to get the start at left guard. That's where Landon Dickerson was playing. That's the matchup to me. He's a big, hulking young man at the guard spot. Their offensive line is averaging 6'6", 350 pounds. That is a big group. But, man, I look at John Allen as a guy who last week really burst onto the scene, 6 pressures, several quarterback hits. If there's going to be a John Allen breakout game, I need it to happen this afternoon. I think it's a massive blow, though, for Philadelphia, man. I don't want to underscore it by any means because when we got the announcement yesterday about Payne being out, I almost wanted to forfeit. You know, that was my initial first blush reaction. You know how I get.
A little bit.
You know, but now looking at it, man, I think it's huge that Cam Jurgens isn't going to be in the lineup here this afternoon. The interior of Washington has to show up, and the guy I really point at is the young pup, Jerzon Newton, out of the University of Illinois. Struggles a little bit taking on double teams. He's got to play big here for this team to win.
All right, it is the Burgundy and Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. We're under 2 hours away from kickoff in the NFC Championship. The winner headed to the Super Bowl. It would be Washington's first Super Bowl in 33 years. When we get back, you will hear from the Sports Junkies. Don't go anywhere. It's Burgundy and Gold pregame show with Denton Dale and Willingham on 106.7 The Fan. It's a Burgundy and Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. He's Linnell Willingham. I am Denton Day. We're a little over 90 minutes away from kickoff in the NFC Championship, a Super Bowl berth on the line. Washington has an opportunity to get to its first Super Bowl in 33 years. At 2 p.m., the Junkies will be out here. A little watch party going on with them. If you're a fan of Bit Season, the Bit Season boys are standing over here to my left, so come hang out with them. But the Junkies taped a segment for us earlier this week to give us their thoughts on the game.
All right, boys, here we go. NFC Championship game. It's the rubber match. Washington in Philly. What do you see?
Can you believe we're talking about an NFC Championship?
Just like we all had it mapped out in the preseason, right? We all had the Commanders making it one step
Bickle, I
from the
couldn't have
Super
been
Bowl.
more wrong about this team. I predicted 7 wins. They've doubled it. I predicted
Nobody saw this.
I predicted Jaden would have struggled like most quarterbacks, most rookie quarterbacks.
Turns out he's a star.
He hasn't.
Yeah.
No, he's had the greatest rookie. Some have said the greatest rookie campaign of any quarterback, even surpassing what C.J. Stroud did last year.
I mean, he's setting records.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a really close game. But a part of me says at some point it's got to end.
Does it? Does it have to?
It doesn't
end?
have to, and I hope I'm wrong. But
I'm kind of, look, I picked against them the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to do it this week.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at an Eagles team that seems to be struggling. I know that they're advancing and they have this great record, but nobody believes that the Eagles are playing as well as they should.
yeah.
And I don't have any reason to believe that all of a sudden it's going to turn magical for Philadelphia this week. Meanwhile, Washington does seem to, at least offensively, be firing on all cylinders. And they played them about a month ago, and Jaden threw 5 touchdown passes.
And you pair that with the fact that Jaden, through this playoff run, has just been unflappable. No stage is too big for him. He's gone on the road and won in Tampa and Detroit. He's taken great care of the ball. He's only been sacked once. He's leading the offense, up and down the field. There's no way I'm betting against him at this point. There's no way I'm going to turn my back on our guy, Jaden Daniels.
It doesn't seem
when
smart.
He's brought us this far.
I know, it doesn't seem smart.
Listen, we shouldn't act like this is some easy task just because they've been on this heater and they've beaten some quality teams. Remember, that was the knock against them, that they couldn't beat anybody. I think they've erased that. But Saquon's going to be a massive task to try to contain him to any extent that they can. And sometimes it's a little like when guys are wounded, you're going to have like a Michael Jordan flu game. Like what's going to happen here with Jalen? So I am nervous. They're super capable of giving us a beatdown. But I just think there's something special about this team. And I really think these guys, more than any group that I can remember of late, believe in themselves completely. They have bought in totally to do anybody, anywhere, anytime bit. And hopefully they're able to cap that off today. I like the Commanders. Should I go first?
Sure.
I like the Commanders 31. Let's say I want to be consistent. 28-21.
Wow.
I just feel like we've kind of proven outside of a couple Saquon runs that we match up well with them. And I think it'll continue. I like the Skins, Commanders, 28-21.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to contain Saquon. They didn't do it in the 2 games. But in the last game, if you really look at it, and you can't take away a home run touchdown, he had that. But in the second half, he goes for just 29 yards on 17 carries. And I'm more so just look at what the offense did against the Eagles. The Eagles had Jalen Carter on the field. They had Zach Bond on the field. They had Mitchell. They had most of their guys defensively on the field, and Washington didn't punt in the game. They did have 5 turnovers, but Jaden had his 5 touchdown passes. I think the offense has their way. They win a high-scoring affair, 31-24.
I think I'm the only guy in D.C. not picking the Commanders.
You are too.
I'm just going to pick – I just feel like when we all pick Washington, it goes the opposite way. I'm going to take Philadelphia. They're 23-5 in their last 28 home games.
It's tough.
They're very difficult to beat there. So I'm going to take them 31-27.
I think Jalen Hurts is more banged up than anybody's letting on. I don't think he's going to be super effective in this game, and that just brings it down to, can you keep Saquon Barkley from going for like 180 and 2 touchdowns? And hopefully Joe Witt's game plan is good enough to keep him around 110, 120 yards. If the Commanders do that, they come out on top. I have Jaden leading them to the Super Bowl as a rookie.
Woo!
First time ever.
31-28. They prevail at the link. Commanders win.
That's how we see it, boys. Now buy us a beer.
I'll take the winners, Linnell. I'll take the winners.
For sure.
We're really starting to fill up here at Honor Brewery, right? We're here. If you need a place to watch the game, come hang out with us. We're live here in the Sterling location. The Junkies are going to be here in about 30 minutes. Watch party starts at 3 once this game kicks off. On 106.70, an hour of the Westwood 1 pregame coverage and then that old broadcast during the game. You'll get Doc after the game. We're 30 minutes out from being finished. I'm not going to ask your prediction yet. We do that at the end.
Yes.
But I got to feel like you're feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Man, the more people that begin to file in, the more real this feels, man. I keep telling the story about how I drove here today in complete silence, just being just all vibes, trying to soak in the atmosphere, man. This is electric. If you would have told me, man, when we first started doing this thing a couple of years ago that we would be in this position already, I tell you, you were a damn fool. It just makes you, really appreciate what we do. But, man, you said something that resonated with me earlier. Enough with this. We're playing with house money crap. We're here to win.
Win
Washington,
the damn game.
Philadelphia, 60 minutes separates us from a childhood dream of ours. Let's go.
Let's go. I love the duality. You sat in silence, and I was listening to Kendrick Lamar and SZA getting ready for the Super Bowl halftime show. So I'm fired up. When we get back, we got our keys to the game for you, what Washington needs to do to come away with a win, and then we got some predictions as well. Don't go anywhere. It's Burn and Gold pregame live with Denton Dale and Ed Willingham on 106.7 The Fan. It's the Burgundy Gold pregame show. We are live from Honor Brewing out in Sterling, having a great time. It's filling up in here. We got a lot of Commanders fans up in here. We got 90 minutes for kickoff for the NFC Championship game. If you're in here, we got some giveaways. My guy Shaq, go enter the giveaway. We got a chair, we got a helmet, so come hang out. If you're not here, you better get your ass over here for this one. Linnell, I'm getting fired up, if that wasn't obvious. We got some keys to the game coming, but it's hard not to be jazzed up right now.
I'm telling you, man, it's an environment like I've never been a part of. 60 minutes away from punching their ticket to the Super Bowl, a lifelong dream being fulfilled for me and you. I'm just ready to get it going, man.
We talked a lot about this game from a lot of different angles. It feels like we haven't spent enough time on Jaden Daniels. I mean, we could do the whole 3 hours on Jaden if we wanted to, but the last time we saw Jaden play the Philadelphia Eagles, he had 5 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Now, the team turned the ball over 5 times. Not great, but Jaden was sensational. He's been really good in the postseason. I still don't think he's played his best game in the postseason yet. What does he need to do today to come away with a win for Washington?
He's got to play the best game of his young career, man. It feels like we've said it before each and every postseason game. What do you need to see from Jaden? He's got to be the best player on the field. I think there's a good shot that he is today. But, man, I just continue to be impressed with the poise that this young man has showed at the quarterback position. It is rare to see a young man in his rookie season have complete command of this offense the way that he does. The trust that the coaching staff and his teammates have in him is a big reason they're playing in this football game right now. And I hate to make it just about Jaden Daniels, but damn it, it is just about Jaden Daniels. He has been a godsend for this organization. He's been a godsend for the entire DMV tri-state area. I expect him to put his big boy pants on and give us that signature Jaden Daniels performance.
You know, talk about control of the offense. So I got down in the rabbit hole yesterday, right? And the NFL is very much buying into the Jaden Daniels hype as they should. So they were putting together clutch moments of Jaden Daniels. And I was rewatching that pass to Terry in Cincinnati, which is really when I think this thing changed, right? Like, that's when you know, all right, they got a quarterback. I was watching that again. Did you see how he was handling the line of scrimmage? He was basically telling Luke McCaffrey and Zach Ertz, he's like, literally, he wasn't even saying, he's like, just stand still. Yeah. This ball's going to 17. I just need you to stand still. Then he dropped back and then delivered that ball to 17. You want to talk about, that was his 3rd game in the NFL.
Come on,
What's
man.
he going to do his 3rd game in the postseason?
He just continues to wow me each and every time he steps onto the football field. Chris Russell brought something up very interesting on the pregame show earlier. He hadn't really been super impactful as a runner this postseason, right? Tampa didn't take off a ton. Last week it was him just dropping balls in the bucket.
He did have that 4th and 2 against Tampa.
But he did have the,
I mean, it checked that one into my veins.
100%. I just look at the way Philadelphia rushes the passer. They're not a very disciplined group. He had that gut-wrenching 29-yard scramble on 4th and 12, I believe, in that Week 16 matchup. If he can have a moment like that, you know, I think Washington's got a really good shot of winning this thing. His legs are going to be huge today.
I've been wanting to see that Robert Griffin 2012 Minnesota kind of moment. If I get him streaking up the sideline, doesn't got to be 75
I might start streaking if he starts streaking. I mean, come on.
All right, let's get to our keys of the game, our window of opportunity. It's presented by the Window Man. Since 1989, the Window Man has been the educational window company. Get your free no-pressure in-home estimate or at thewindowman.com's Fairfax showroom. Linnell, I'll let you start your first key to the game for Washington to punch the ticket to the Super Bowl for the first time in 33 years.
It is going to sound cliche, but they must start fast. Washington feels like they win the damn coin toss each and every week, and they consistently choose to defer to the second half. Not in this matchup. If they win the toss, I'm taking the football and going out and trying to score. If you can get Philadelphia to be in chase mode offensively, forcing Jalen Hurts to try and chase points and throw the football, I think you have a really good shot.
Do you think Dan Quinn makes that decision, though? He's been,
I would hope so.
He's been so hell-bent on doing things the way that he's done things. Do you think they make that switch? Or do you think Sirianni's dumb enough to give him the ball in the second half?
Well, that would
He's already made that mistake once.
That'd be something I'd like to see. I just think the fast start for Washington is huge, man. We know what type of football team Philadelphia is. If you can force them to become one-dimensional and have them begin to start chasing points, I think Washington's got a real shot here. We don't punt. That's the one thing that we've noticed over the past, 18, 19 weeks. This group doesn't punt the football. Did we see Tressway last weekend?
We saw him for the first time. He's played once in 2 games.
I mean, it's been special to watch this group offensively. I think the fast start's got to be huge, though.
My favorite seeing of Tressway is when he is holding a field goal kick.
Yes.
Or when he's holding a point after. That is when Tressway looks the best. So I like your idea there. For me, it has to be establish the run game a little bit. Not to the death of you, but if Brian Robinson is having having a good football game, if Austin Eckler, McNichols, I don't really care who it is, if they're having a good football game and they look like they did against Detroit, against this defense, things are going to go really, really right for Washington. Brian Robinson looked like himself for the first time in months last week. I need to see a little bit more of that from B-Rob.
You mentioned it earlier, a Brian Robinson revenge game. 2 fumbles the last time he played against Philadelphia, and it felt like last week was the first time he really got out of the doghouse since that moment. I think he runs behind his pads and is physical this afternoon. But Brian Robinson as a receiver out of the backfield is another thing I want to pay attention to as well. Remember Austin Eckler on Thursday Night Football, 8 catches for 89 yards. Can B-Rob get in on the pass-catching action as well?
Yeah, I need to see that one. My next key comes defensively.
Yeah.
Blitz Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
Blitz the life out of
Move him,
Jalen
move
Hurts.
him, move
Let's
him.
see what that knee is looking like.
Yeah.
I don't care about the videos that social team posted of him running on the blacktop. What is it going to look like when Frankie Louvu's chasing him?
Yeah.
The player that all of Philadelphia thinks is dirty. What a weak
Crazy,
fan,
right?
What a weak fan base. I want to see Louvu get after Jalen Hurts. I want to see Dorrance Armstrong, who played his ass off last week, get after Jalen Hurts. I think Joe Witt needs to bring a little bit of pressure to start this thing off and really start to impose the will. This is what we're on today.
I think your key falls right into my second key. Washington has to win first and second down on both sides of the football, especially on defense here. As you mentioned, if you can get Jalen Hurts in that offense in those third and long situations and make him throw the football, I think that is bonus and advantage Washington. And then on the flip side, offensively, we know how good this group has been on fourth down. How do you earn the right to go for it on fourth? Have success on the early downs by hook or by crook, whether it's the run game, whether it's the quick passing game, whether it's the screen game. Washington has to remain efficient on the offensive side of the football.
I got one more on defense before I give you my final key
Yeah.
that's going to be centered around the offense. I think Marshawn Lattimore has a great game.
I need it.
I think my key
Inject
is
it
that
into my
Marshawn
veins.
Lattimore is going to validate the decision that Adam Peters made. There's been a lot of criticism about Lattimore, and
Sure.
some of it is rightfully so. He hasn't really done much since he got traded for, and we knew this was going to be a long-term situation, right? Like, you're keeping him for the long run. But now that you're in the championship game, man, I need to see Marshawn Lattimore be Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
If that means picking off a ball late in the game, which is what I think is going to happen, I need to see that one. If he wants to take one back to the end zone like Quan Martin did last week, I need to see that one. Let me see the best DB on this roster making plays.
For sure. And I think, look, last weekend you didn't hear his number or name called a lot. That's a good thing at the defensive back
very
spot.
good, yeah.
Mikey Sanders still got tested. We saw him come away with 2 interceptions.
And keep testing him.
I think the physicality of Marshawn Lattimore in the run game is what's going to be huge. Philadelphia is going to try to get the ball on the perimeter. How your corners and safeties fit in the run is going to be huge as well. The last key for me, Denton, kind of comes as like a backhanded compliment. They forced 5 turnovers last weekend, but if you look at this defense through the first 2 games of the postseason, they're giving up the most yards per play in the entire National Football League. That's okay if you're going to turn teams over. They got to get a turnover or 2 from Philadelphia, whether it's punching the ball out from Saquon Barkley, whether it's a special teams turnover, a block punt, you name it. You have to do something to steal an extra possession against this group.
Whether it's making Jalen Hurts throw the ball more than he wants to. We know he's not comfortable
Yeah,
in
they're
that spot.
$250 million running back that just happens to play the quarterback position. So
Get after Jalen Hurts. All right, my final key for me, give the ball to that man.
yeah.
Give the ball. If you give the ball to Jaden Daniels late in the game with an opportunity to win, they're going to win.
Yeah.
I have full confidence in the guy that wears 5 on his chest. He's proven it on a week-in, week-out basis against good teams, against this team already. Yeah, it was at home for Washington, but that dude's not afraid of the moment.
No.
He played football in the SEC. With all due respect to Philadelphia, they don't stand a chance against Bama at night.
I was about to say.
It's a religion down there in the South. And Jaden Daniels played in that, and he was the best player that Nick Saban said he ever had to coach against.
And that's some
So give
damn
me the
good
ball
kudos to
with
get.
Jaden Daniels late in the game, and similar to what we saw against Tampa Bay, if you give him the ball back in a one-score game or an opportunity to go win with 4 minutes left, the next time we're seeing Jalen Hurts on the field is when he's shaking his hand. And Washington's celebrating in their house.
little bonus key for us as well. I can live with a 7-yard Saquon run, a 9-yard Saquon run, a 15-yard Saquon run. I don't need the 69-yard scamper that we saw in Week 16.
Yeah, nice but not nice.
I don't need him ripping off 25 yards at a time. If you can, make this group, throw the football in between the 20s, that's what I think the key to this game is going to be. It gets tight down in the red zone. Jalen Hurts, I continue to make jokes about him. I don't like him very much.
I picked up on that.
The perfect jawline, his fancy chains. He thinks he's the Fresh Prince of Philadelphia. Washington has something for him this afternoon.
Real quick, before we get to our predictions here, let me see the card.
Uh-oh.
Pull up the bets. What are we putting money on today? We can't get out of here without at least helping.
Well, some of the
odds,
here are very favorable towards the Washington Commanders. The one that I love, Jaden Daniels, 60-plus rushing yards, is plus 126. Jaden Daniels in the last meeting against Philadelphia ran for, I think, 88 yards in that game.
Yeah, it was one of his best games until the Atlanta game.
So I expect him to have a major impact on the ground with his legs this afternoon. The other thing is this when it comes to the props in this football game. Not the props, but the actual overall total. It's set at 46.5.
Yeah, it's gone down. It was 47 for a majority of the week.
I have this eerie feeling, based on the way Washington has played defensively, and I'm not trying to joan on our fellas, but the defense isn't very good. Let's just be real about it. 46.5 seems relatively low.
Yeah.
I think that is the way that Washington wins this football game. If it turns into a track meet, if it turns into one of those situations where it comes down to whose offense is able to be on the field.
Going blow for blow with number 5, you're not hanging if you're Philadelphia in that regard.
They can't do it. So I think if you're Washington, while it's unacceptable to give up explosive plays defensively, as long as 5 gets the ball back with enough time, I am okay with it.
My favorite bet is Terry over 60.5.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be we know that Terry McLaurin is a star. We know that. I don't think that all of the general NFL fan base does because they don't see him in these kind of games. It's hard to be considered a star wide receiver when you don't play in the playoffs very often.
Right.
And he had not really played in the playoffs. I think Terry has an elite game today. I'm talking above 100 yards. I'm talking 2 touchdowns. That really cements himself as this is not only just a great this is a top 10 wide receiver in this league.
Yeah.
And then you can start to have that conversation. Where does he rank in the top 10? We'll do that in the offseason
sure.
in a couple of weeks because we're not going to be worried about that for the next 2 weeks.
Attaboy.
Right? I think Terry's going to have a huge game, and you can get that over-under right now at 60.5. I'd be jumping all over that one.
Yeah, he's going to have his hands full going up against Quinion Mitchell. I'm curious to see how Vic Fangio and company choose to defend him. There was a lot of bracket coverage in that Week 11 game against Philadelphia. Week 16, we saw him able to, take the top off of the defense a couple different times. You mentioned Terry McLaurin, but I continue to feel as if this is De'Ami Brown's postseason. And coaching matters in the National Football League. I had to listen to Eric Bieniemy and Scott Turner basically tell us as a fan base, hey, this guy stinks. Insert Cliff Kingsbury, and all of a sudden, De'Ami Brown, a key contributor on this football team, he's got the speed advantage going up against the older veteran corner in Darius Slay. He had a 51-yard catch in that Week 16 game. I expect De'Ami Brown to play a big role as well.
Another big game for De'Ami. Right now, he's the leading receiver of the guys that are still left in the playoffs. Wow. He's third amongst everybody because Nico Collins went crazy, and then the white dude in Los Angeles went super crazy in that one game.
Hard to do that.
De'Ami has had a great postseason, as you mentioned. All right, we are live at Honor Brewery in Sterling. If you're not here, you got to get here. We got some giveaways going. We're going to give some stuff away at halftime of this matchup. The Junkies are going to be here in about 10 minutes. Our watch party's kicking off very, very soon, and we're just about a little over an hour from kickoff of the NFC Championship game where Washington could punch its ticket to a Super Bowl for the first time in 33 years. Our predictions when we get back. It's Burgundy Gold pregame with Dettendale and Willingham on 106.7 The Fan. Wrapping up our show here, we are live from Honor Brewery in Sterling. We got a watch party that's going to kick off as soon as this game kicks off in about an hour. The Junkies will be rolling around here
Lurch
in a
Papa's
matter.
over there in the corner.
Oh, I see Lurch.
There he is.
There's been Lurch over there. The Bit Season boys are here. Cake's going to be here. JP's going to be here. So it's going to be a fun environment in the hour leading up to it, Linnell, but it's time.
It's the moment of truth.
It's the moment of truth.
Before we do this, I Honor Brewer, can we make some noise, man? I
Make a
appreciate
little
you all
bit of
being
noise.
out here. 60 minutes away. 60 minutes away from living out a lifelong dream for myself. I know a lot of you here in attendance maybe have seen this team in the Super Bowl before.
We have not.
We have not.
We have not. This is new territory for us.
Did I unplug myself? Who cares? My voice is big enough anyway. Make some noise. What do you got?
All right, Lena, how you feeling? So we got people here. I see a lot of old Redskins gear. I see some Theismann. I see some Commanders
Saw a
stuff.
Dale Green jersey.
I see a Dale Green jersey. I can see a big chain over here for my man. How are you feeling? We got a couple minutes here. You think they get it done?
I think this team is a group of destiny. I think they've, beat us over the head with their cliches, anybody, anywhere, anytime. After they lost to Tampa, I was ragging on them a little bit, man. You can't have the cliches without backing it up. This group truly doesn't matter, or truly doesn't care, rather, who they go up against. They went and slayed the Lions last week, the NFC's number 1 seed. Philadelphia is going to be a walk in the park based on what this group has done. Walk in your trap and take over your trap. Give me Washington 30-23.
Can I get a stat line for Jaden?
I think it's one of those legacy games for our boy Jaden Daniels. 26 of 30, 240 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and that's where it gets interesting. 9 carries, 90 yards on the ground. He has a 40-yard touchdown run. If this all happens, you better cash it.
You better cash that entire thing. I've been confident this entire week, Linnell. I told Kevin this on the Kevin Sheehan show. I've told anyone that will listen. I feel good about how Washington matches up against Philadelphia. With that said, it's impossible to ignore how good Philadelphia is, top to bottom from their roster. When Jason Kelce got on a program in Philadelphia and said they're better at every position, he was right except for one.
Yeah.
Washington owns them at quarterback. Jaden is far greater than Jalen Hurts. So while every bit of logic tells me that this is going to be Philly, we should just be happy to be there. You don't play this game with logic. You don't play it on paper. Give me the Manders.
Let's do it.
Give me the Manders. I'm taking them 30-24. I think they get to New Orleans. And can I get a rematch with them in Buffalo?
Ooh-wee.
Can I get a rematch with maybe them and Jaden Daniels snatching the crown from Patrick Mahomes in New Orleans? A little bit of voodoo action on that one.
Either way, man, the time is now. We appreciate you all joining us out here. It's going to do it for the Burgundy and Gold pregame show. The Junkies coming your way next.
We got some Junkies guys out here. All of them are going to be out here. Hang out with them. Get some food. Honor Brewery has done a great job hosting us. They've been fantastic. They got great IPAs. They got great drinks. Go get some of their food. Our watch party is going to start in a matter of moments when the Junks get up here, and we're an hour away from kickoff, man. It's impossible not to get hyped. Washington about to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. For Linnell Willingham, I'm Denton Day. This has been the Burgundy and Gold pregame show live from Honor Brewery on 106.7 The Fan.